Chapter 4800. Billions of miles away, Yun was frantically fleeing. But soon he seemed to have sensed something and stopped on a mountain. That is. Zhuowen raised his head and looked into the distance. He saw a blazing white light in the distance, spreading rapidly in all directions with unparalleled momentum. Wherever the white light passed, all the buildings, mountains, and terrain collapsed and were annihilated into nothingness. It's the aura of the imperial astronomer. She self-destructed? In the outside world, Zhu Huang's eyes were filled with grief as he muttered softly. Brother Zhua, let me out. Suddenly, Ma Yujie's calm and terrifying voice sounded. Yun was silent for a moment. Then he waved his sleeve and released Ma Yujie and Zhu Huang. At this moment, there was no longer any cynicism on Ma Yujie's fat face. His gaze was very cold, and so was his expression. Suddenly, Ma Yujie knelt heavily on the ground and kowtowed 3 times. Imperial astronomer, I swear that I, Ma Yujie, will slaughter all the primordial heavenly demons and kill the heavenly demon king in my lifetime. I will make all the primordial heavenly demons pay the price. Ma Yujie roared at the top of his lungs. His voice was very sad and hurt. Zhuowen did not say anything. He also knelt and kowtowed 3 times in the direction of sun-traversing Star City. If I, Tun, don't die, I will kill the heavenly demon king. Tun clenched his fists tightly and said word by word. Zhu Huang silently looked at the 2 people in front of him and sighed inwardly. He knew that the 2 people in front of him were the chosen ones that the imperial astronomer had protected with her life. He hoped that in the future, they could really grow into experts who could take charge of a region. Then, they would slaughter the primordial heavenly demons and kill the heavenly demon king to avenge the imperial astronomer. Let's go. There's no time for us to waste. We must become stronger. Zhuowen stood up and said in a low voice. Ma Yujie was silent for a moment. He nodded and looked at Zhuowen. Brother Zhua, I'll leave the rest to you. We must first find Lord Jinsu. Don't worry. Next, we will first understand the specific situation of the ancient star system, and then I will directly go to Holy Star City. Zhuowen said in a deep voice. After the battle at the Heavenly Moat, Zhuowen and Ma Yujie learned that the Zhen constellation god had been severely injured. Later, the Niu constellation god and the Nu constellation god had rescued her and brought her back to Holy Star City. Now that so many years had passed, he did not know if Star God of the Chariot had recovered from her injuries. Furthermore, it was unknown if they would be able to meet Star God of the Chariot. However, this was clearly not what Zhuowen and the others were considering now. What they needed to do first was to find out about the battle between the primordial Sky Fiend and the primordial god, as well as the route to Holy Star City. Let me take you there. My true form is the Torch Dragon, and my speed is extremely fast. Zhu Huang walked over and said in a deep voice. Tun shook his head and said, Senior Zhu Huang, the situation is still unclear. We have no idea how many star cities have been captured by the primordial heavenly demons on the way to the sacred star city. Let me investigate the situation first, and then we can plan how to get to the sacred star city. Hearing this, Zhu Huang nodded, thinking that this was the only way. Let's enter the great world first. Zhuowen waved his sleeve, and a constantly rotating vortex appeared in front of the 2. Ma Yujie and Zhu Huang did not refuse. At present, Zhuowen's method was indeed the best at the moment. After the 2 entered the great world, Zhuowen once again entered the demonic state. Surging demonic qi surrounded his body, and a pair of scarlet eyes emitted a cold light. Zhuowen turned into a black shadow and disappeared from the mountain, fleeing into the distance. Not long after Zhuowen left, the endless white light passing through the Sun-Star City suddenly stopped expanding. Immediately after, a terrifying and thick black liquid energy rapidly spread out from the depths of the white light, constantly nibbling away at the terrifying white light. After about 10 breaths of time, the endless black liquid completely covered the white light, and then continuously shrank, finally turning into a palm-sized black ball. The black liquid on the surface of the black ball constantly flowed, as if there was some kind of power constantly wriggling. In the void behind the black ball, huge cracks suddenly appeared, and from those deep and pitch-black cracks, 3 figures slowly walked out. The figure in the lead was dressed in a luxurious black robe inlaid with golden threads. He was not tall, and instead looked somewhat thin and weak. He held a scepter surrounded by black mist. The strange thing was that this person was wearing a pitch-black ghost mask, only revealing a pair of scarlet and cold eyes. Behind this person, there were 2 heavenly demons in armor with terrifying auras. These 2 heavenly demons were not weaker than Mo Wuing and Mo Wuguang. In fact, they were even stronger. Clearly, they were even more terrifying true demon experts. Imperial Astronomer, what a good move. The bull-headed true demon to the left of the ghost-masked man snorted coldly, looking down at the ruins of the Sunstar City and the piles of heavenly demon corpses with an extremely ugly expression. Who would have thought that the Imperial Astronomer would rather self-destruct than surrender? What an unyielding woman! The dragon-headed true demon to the right of the ghost-masked man frowned and said unhappily, "Go and see if Mo Wuing and Mo Wuguang are dead." Suddenly, the ghost-masked man spoke slowly. His voice was very calm, but there was an unquestionable authority in it. The bull-headed true demon and dragon-headed true demon looked at him in awe. They hurriedly cupped their fists and turned into 2 streaks of black light, beginning to search the ruins and the surroundings. "My king! I've found them. Mo Wuguang is dead. Mo Wuing still has some aura, but he's not far from death." Suddenly, the bull-headed true demon whizzed over. The demonic energy behind him transformed into 2 large hands, and he hurriedly knelt down. The dragon-headed true demon had also rushed over in time. When he saw the 2 pitiful bodies, his heart trembled. Mo Wuing and Mo Wuguang were the closest to the Imperial Astronomer. The power of the latter's self-destruction was so terrifying that it immediately engulfed the 2 of them. Mo Wuguang died on the spot. Mo Wuing was smarter and released all the demonic energy in his body to block most of the explosion, but he was still on the verge of death. What a pity for the Imperial Astronomer. Why did she have to do this? I wanted to treat her well, but I didn't think that she would take things so hard. The ghost-masked man shook his head lightly. He reached out with his gloved right hand and tapped lightly. Instantly, the black ball floating in front of him whizzed out and turned into countless drops of black liquid, enveloping Mo Wuing and Mo Wuguang. Not long after, the bodies of Mo Wuing and Mo Wuguang, who were originally on the verge of death, began to move. Their bodies, which were riddled with holes, were rapidly recovering. Chapter 4801. When the black liquid in the black ball entered Mo Wuguang and Mo Wuing's bodies, their battered bodies were completely healed. Suddenly, the 2 true demons opened their eyes. Their eyes were pitch black and cold. "I didn't die?" Mo Wuguang stretched out his hands and felt the power in them. His eyes were filled with excitement. Mo Wuing was also overjoyed. "Our king saved you personally, so of course you won't die. Get up and thank our king." The dragon-head true demon glanced at Mo Wuing and Mo Wuguang and said coldly. Only then did Mo Wuing and Mo Wuguang notice that they were floating in the air with the dragon-head true demon in front of them. Further away was a man wearing a demon mask and an ox-headed true demon. "It's our king." Mo Wuing and Mo Wuguang were excited. They got up and knelt before the man with the devil mask, kowtowing repeatedly. "Get up. After all, you are my devil generals. How can I just watch you die like this?" The man with the devil mask waved his hand. Only then did Mo Wuing and Mo Wuguang stand up respectfully. "My king, we failed this mission. Please punish us." Mo Wuing and Mo Wuguang remained kneeling on the ground, not daring to get up. They looked like they were willing to accept their punishment. The heavenly demon king's eyes were calm as he continued, "I asked you to get up. If you don't get up, you can kill yourselves now." Mo Wuing and Mo Wuguang's hearts skipped a beat. They quickly got up and obediently stood beside the heavenly demon king. Did the Imperial Astronomer say anything useful before she died? The heavenly demon king asked. Mo Wuing and Mo Wuguang looked at each other. Mo Wuguang said in a low voice, "She did say something, but I can't be sure if what she said is true." "Speak." The heavenly demon king said concisely. "She said that you wanted to capture her alive because you were afraid." "What a joke." My king is omnipotent and has boundless demonic power. Why would you be afraid? Mo Wuguang sneered. The heavenly demon king's eyes narrowed. She's right. I am indeed afraid. Mo Wuguang's smile froze. Mo Wuguang and the other two true demons were also stunned. My king. Are you kidding me? Shadowless Mo forced a smile. I am indeed afraid of the three of them. These three people were called the Chosen Ones by the imperial astronomer. In the prophecy, they are the only ones who can defeat me. Heaven Devil King's eyes flickered with a complicated red glow as he continued, It's just a pity for the imperial astronomer. Although this person's strength is ordinary, her ability is extremely strong. Back then, if the constellation god of the primordial gods had believed her words, perhaps our primordial heavenly devils would have been defeated long ago, and we wouldn't have developed to this extent. For the primordial god to abandon such a talent like a pair of worn-out shoes, it's about time for him to die. These primordial gods are the real parasites of the primordial star system. They have long been eradicated. The dragon-head true devil said solemnly, King, since you said that there are three people who can defeat you, then we should find these three people as soon as possible and eliminate them to prevent future troubles. Heaven Devil King glanced at the dragon-head true devil and said, I also want to find them, but the problem now is that I don't know who they are. Moreover, the imperial astronomer hasn't said anything yet. I'm afraid that these three people are still very weak. Otherwise, they would have attacked me long ago. Pass down the order. From now on, investigate the three chosen ones at all costs. If anyone can find them, it will be a great merit, and I will bestow him with power that surpasses that of a true demon. As soon as he said that, Shadowless Mo Wuguang and the other true demon's eyes flashed with a sharp light, and they quickly nodded in agreement. Have you found the person I asked you to investigate? Heaven Devil King looked at Shadowless Mo and asked with bright eyes. My king, I have a clue. There is indeed a person called Zhuowen in the primordial star system. Shadowless Mo knelt on one knee and said with a respectful expression. Then do you know where this Zhuowen is now? Heaven Devil King asked with an agitated expression and a hurried voice. Shadowless Mo shook his head and said, I only found out about this from an primordial god in 4 Symbols Star City. I'm afraid that my king will have to ask that primordial god about Zhuowen's whereabouts. Bring him here, Heaven Devil King said. Shadowless Mo nodded and drew a line in the air with his right finger. The void in front of him instantly split open, and Shadowless Mo grabbed 2 rather wretched figures and pulled them out. Heaven Devil King looked over and saw an old man and a young man in front of him. At this moment, the old and young primordial god were trembling as they looked at the man in the devil mask in front of them in horror. My king! This pair of grandfather and grandson opened a medicinal clinic in 4 Symbols Star City, and a young man once cooperated with them to refine divine pills. That young man's name is Yun. Shadowless Mo said respectfully. Ever since he led the army to conquer 4 Symbols Star City, he had captured countless primordial gods alive. He carefully remembered the task that Heaven Devil King had given him, which was to interrogate the captives. Of course, he had done this kind of interrogation countless times in the past, and he was almost numb to it. Originally, he did not hold any hope and was just casually interrogating them. However, he did not expect that this pair of grandfather and grandson actually knew about Jun. This made Shadowless Mo overjoyed. Moreover, he also found out from this pair that Jun had gone to Sun-traversing Star City, and it just so happened that he and Mo Wuguang were going to attack Sun-traversing Star City. Therefore, he took the opportunity to attack Sun-traversing Star City first, capture the imperial astronomer and Zhuowen, and then offer them to Heaven Devil King. Wouldn't this be an additional merit on top of his merit? Unfortunately, things did not go as he wished. He was tricked by the imperial astronomer and almost died here. As for Zhuowen, he naturally did not have any clues. You know about Zhuowen? Heaven Devil King looked at this pair of grandfather and grandson and asked indifferently, You're Heaven Devil King? Although the old man's body was still trembling, he was rather calm. He looked at the man in the devil mask in front of him and asked in a deep voice, Shadowless Mo was a true demon general and had an extremely high status in the Heaven Devil clan. However, he was so humble in front of this man. Perhaps only Heaven Devil King had such status and prestige. You are very smart. However, you are not qualified to question me. Heaven Devil King's voice was cold. He flicked his finger, and the old man screamed in pain. His right arm exploded, and countless black energy kept drilling into his wound, gnawing at his flesh. The old man was in so much pain that his forehead was covered in cold sweat. He kept rolling on the ground. "Grandfather!" Seeing the old man in so much pain, the child hurriedly went forward and supported the old man. Tears kept falling down his face. "Speak. Where is Yuan now? If the answer you give me is satisfactory, I will let you live." Heaven Devil King's voice was still calm. Chapter 4802. Stop torturing my grandfather. Big Brother Zhuoan went to Sun Traversing Star City, and we don't know what happened after that. That's all we know. The child wiped the tears from the corner of his eyes and stood up. He looked at the Heaven Demon King stubbornly. The Heaven Demon King looked at the child silently. He flicked his finger, and an image appeared in front of him. It was a young man's face. "Is the joie when you speak of this person?" The Heaven Demon King continued to ask. The child looked at the image in front of him and nodded. "Yes. He is Big Brother Jun." Mo Wuing, Mo Wu Guang, and the other true demons also looked at the image and frowned. They had never seen this person before. He was a stranger to them. In fact, they were also curious. Why did the Heaven Demon King spend so much effort to find this Jun? They remembered that the Heaven Demon King had already ordered to search for this person when they invaded the primordial god continent. Even now, the Heaven Demon King still hadn't given up. Just who was this person called Zhuoan that their king would spare no effort in searching for him? "What's your name?" the Heaven Demon King asked indifferently. The child frowned slightly, but he still answered, "My name is Tan Yudi." Heaven Devil King nodded. His right hand made a grabbing motion, and Tan Yudi's head flew into his palm. "Yudi? Heaven Demon King, stop. If you want to attack, come at me." The elder's eyes were filled with anger as he roared at the Heaven Demon King. "Old man, you better behave." Shadowless Mo took a step forward and stomped on the old man's face, rendering him unable to say a word. At this moment, black liquid surged out of the Heaven Demon King's palm and entered Tan Yudi's 7 orifices. Tan Yudi, who had been struggling violently, was now struggling less and less as the black liquid entered his body. In the end, he became very quiet. After an unknown period of time, Tan Yudi suddenly opened his eyes. However, his eyes were no longer clear. Instead, they were filled with a scarlet light. A terrifying demonic aura surged out of his body, and a monstrous demonic aura filled the surroundings like endless waves. Mo Wuing, Mo Wu Guang, and the other true demon's eyes narrowed. What a powerful demonic aura! With the Celestial Demon King's help, this mediocre young primordial god became a true demon in an instant. Roar! Tan Yudi let out a ferocious roar as he soared into the sky like a wild beast. Terrifying magic energy began to pour out from his body, filled with brutality and killing intent. "From now on, your name is not Tan Yudi, but Mo Yudi." The Heavenly Devil King released Tan Yudi's devilish aura. The latter glanced at the Heavenly Devil King with his scarlet eyes, then knelt on the ground and roared. "Congratulations, Your Majesty!" The experiment to transform the primordial god into the primordial sky fiend was a success. Mo Wuing, Mo Wu Guang, and the other true demons felt a chill in their hearts. They quickly knelt on the ground. Their reverence for the Heavenly Demon King increased. Heaven Devil King shook his head and said, "It's still not perfect. Furthermore, he has to be a young Archean god, and he has to be incredibly talented. That's why he was able to become a true devil in one go. However, the side effects are huge. He won't live for more than a year. After a year, he will die from the backlash of his magic energy. However, he can make good use of this 1 year. I'll leave it to you, Mo Wuing." The Heavenly Devil King looked at Mo Wuing and flicked his finger. A blood-red light landed in Mo Wuing's hand and turned into a blood-red token. With this crimson token, You can command Moud. Use it well. The heavenly devil king said calmly. Mo Wuing quickly cupped his fists and bowed, his eyes filled with excitement. Your Majesty, what should we do with this old fellow? Mo Wuing looked at the lifeless old man at his feet and asked. Let Moud kill him. The heavenly devil king said calmly. Mo Wuing grinned and activated the blood-red token in his hand. Instantly, a blood-red light surged and shot into Moud's body. Moud, who was kneeling on the ground, suddenly felt something. He stood up and charged at the old man. Kill. Moud roared like a wild beast and slammed his palm on the old man's head. Yudi, your grandfather has let you down. The old man looked at his grandson who was hiding in the demonic path and closed his eyes. After Moud slapped the old man to death, a drop of blood unknowingly flowed out from the corner of his eyes. Your Majesty! Both grandfather and grandson said that Guan had come to Sun-traversing Star City. Now that Sun-traversing Star City has been destroyed by the Imperial Astronomer's self-destruction, could that Zhuan have died as well? Mo Wuing walked to the front of the Heavenly Devil King and said submissively. I've searched the entire Sun-traversing Star City and did not find him. This means that he is no longer traversing Sun-traversing Star City. Continue your search. Also, I will send another 1,000,000 Heavenly Devil army to you. You will approach Sacred Star City from the west to the east. The other troops will attack Sacred Star City from all directions. After you have devoured most of the star cities, you will isolate Sacred Star City completely. At that time, I want to see how long these constellation gods will be hiding in their shells. The corner of the Heavenly Devil King's mouth was filled with a cold smile as he continued. Also, remember, if you find that Zhuan, report to me immediately. You must not harm him at all. Mo Wuing and Mo Wuguang hurriedly acknowledged. Their curiosity toward Zhuan had been greatly aroused. Who was this person that their king attached so much importance to? Continue to wait in Sun-traversing Star City. Wait for the 1,000,000 Heavenly Devil army that I will send to you. The Heavenly Devil King said one last time before he brought the Dragon-head True Devil and the Ox-head True Devil into the spatial crack and disappeared. Zhuan continued to fly. Along the way, he saw billowing demonic energy, endless smoke, and countless corpses. Blood flowed like rivers. Everything that had happened was too tragic. After an unknown period of time, Yun arrived at the star city closest to Sun-traversing Star City. He had a detailed map of the Imperial Astronomer's cave abode, so he knew that this star city was called 100 Refinement Star City. What made Zhuan's expression turn ugly was that this star city was basically occupied by the Heavenly Devil Army. The ones who occupied this star city were the other two demon generals under the Heavenly Devil King. Zhuan silently entered 100 Refinement Star City. Compared to Sun-traversing Star City, although 100 Refinement Star City was riddled with holes, it did not turn into a pile of ruins like Sun-traversing Star City. Along the way, many heavenly devils were devouring the corpses scattered everywhere. Some heavenly devils were also destroying the corpses. From the words of the heavenly devils, he knew that this was a surprise attack issued by the Heavenly Devil King. It was also a full-scale attack. The 36 demon generals under the Heavenly Devil King were all sent out. They were divided into 18 groups and approached Sacred Star City from all directions. Zhuan naturally knew about Sacred Star City. This was the core of the 7 constellations galaxy in the north. It was also the place where many constellation gods gathered. Chapter 4803. As Zhuan continued to receive news from the various heavenly demons, his expression became increasingly unsightly. Ever since the heavenly demon army had breached the heavenly moat, the constellation god of the winnowing basket, who had been guarding the heavenly moat on behalf of the constellation god of the Zhen constellation, had been killed. The heavenly demon army had swarmed in, and the first place to bear the brunt was the 4 Symbols Star City. Without the protection of the constellation gods, the 4 Symbols Star City was breached in half a day. Many primordial gods inside were killed, and countless primordial gods were captured. As for the 4 Symbols Star City's city lord, Shinjuanshi, who refused to submit to the heavenly demons, he was the first to be killed. What infuriated Zhuowen even more was that the 4 constellation gods had unanimously decided to use the most conservative method to summon back all the constellation gods and retreat to the 18 cities around Sacred Star City, intending to defend that small area to the death. Why are the constellation gods so cowardly? They actually decisively gave up all the star cities in the northern 7 constellation star region and retreated to the 18 cities around the Sacred Star City? After hearing this news, Zhuowen immediately cursed out loud. As the saying went, if one kept defending, one would definitely lose. Moreover, Zhuowen did not expect that the constellation gods would be so heartless. Not only did they retreat to the 18 cities around the Sacred Star City, they did not even send people to bring back the primordial gods from the other star cities, allowing those innocent primordial gods to be slaughtered by the heavenly demons. Ma Yujie, who was in the Great World, naturally heard the words of those heavenly demons, and he was also enraged. This bunch of bastards. They don't even have the qualifications to become constellation gods. They don't even care about their own people and only care about their own lives. What qualifications do they have to command so many primordial gods? Ma Yujie cursed and swore at the leaders of the 4 constellations. Lord Imperial Astronomer has long known that the constellation gods are unreliable, so he has always concealed the existence of the heaven's chosen child. I think that among the constellation gods, only Lord Jun constellation knows about this. He is the only person that Lord Imperial Astronomer trusts. Zhuowen's gaze was gloomy as he spoke in a low voice. Back then, Lord Jun constellation had asked them to look for the Imperial Astronomer and not the other constellation gods. Zhuowen had found it very strange. Now, he vaguely understood that neither the Imperial Astronomer nor the Imperial Astronomer trusted the other Imperial constellation gods. This is because the constellation gods are not of one mind. Before the primordial heavenly devil appeared, the 28 constellation gods divided the primordial star system into 28 regions. These 28 regions are often engaged in endless wars and plunged the people into misery and suffering. Countless grudges have accumulated between the constellation gods. It is impossible to unite the hearts of all the constellation gods. Over the years, some constellation gods have died in the battle against the primordial heavenly demons. These constellation gods have long put down their grudges and are willing to fight and sacrifice themselves for the future of the primordial gods. However, the remaining constellation gods. Zhu Huang could not help but shake his head at this point. Clearly, he did not want to say what the remaining constellation gods were like. Zhuowen frowned slightly. So this was the reason. The main reason for the defeat of the ancient gods was that they were not united. Once they were united, they might be able to make a comeback. But now, it was all too late. The only remaining territory of the primordial gods was the 18 cities around Sacred Star City. Once those 18 cities were completely breached, the primordial gods would only have Sacred Star City as their last and lonely city. And that also meant that the primordial gods would be completely annihilated. There would not be a trace of luck left. Brother Ma, Lord Imperial Astronomer said that you will become the primordial god king in the future. The hopes of the primordial gods are all on you. Did Lord Imperial Astronomer tell you what to do next? Zhuowen suddenly asked Ma Yujie. Ma Yujie said with a complicated look in his eyes, she told me to go find Lord Imperial Astronomer first. Then, Lord Imperial Astronomer will give me something. This thing is very important. It concerns the life and death of the primordial gods. Once the primordial star system and even the primordial star system are forced into a dead end by the primordial heavenly demons, that will be the time to use that thing. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. He could not hide his curiosity towards the thing that Ma Yujie was talking about. What could it be? It actually made the Imperial Astronomer and Imperial Astronomer value it so highly. Moreover, it was something that could save the life and death of the primordial gods. It is said that this thing has an inseparable relationship with the Heaven's Chosen One. Only the Heaven's Chosen One can use this thing. Ma Yujie said in a deep voice. Zhuowen nodded. He walked to a street corner and entered a dilapidated shop. Zhuowen's actions did not attract the attention of the surrounding heavenly demons at all. Of course, even if those heavenly demons noticed, they would not care. After all, this 100 refinement star city had already been captured by their heavenly demon army. Before the next battle, their heavenly demon army was completely free to move. They could do whatever they wanted in this star city and do whatever they wanted. The shop that Zhuowen entered was a shop that sold divine medicines. However, the divine medicines in the shop had long been looted by the heavenly demons. The entire shop was destroyed beyond recognition. The reason why Zhuowen entered this shop was because he did not want to see the ugly faces of those heavenly demons on the street. He simply entered this shop and discussed countermeasures with Ma Yujie and Zhu Huang. There were a total of 3 floors in the shop. Zhuowen walked up the stairs to the 2nd floor and sat on a bed that was not completely destroyed. Now that the war is imminent, I think the constellation god should have closed the star orbits of all the star cities. I'm afraid it's impossible for us to use the star orbits to go to the sacred star city. Ma Yujie sighed and said, "Not necessarily. Have you forgotten how we came to the heavenly moat when we first came to the ancient star city?" Zhuowen said indifferently, "What do you mean? Sneak into the heavenly demon army again?" Ma Yujie's eyes lit up. "Yes. For now, this is the only way. After the heavenly demon army occupies the star city, they should have modified the star orbits of each star city and connected the various occupied star cities through the star orbits. This way, the heavenly demon army can continuously send reinforcements to the front line. After all, the distance between Star City and Star City is too far. It is simply unrealistic to fly with so many troops," Zhuowen said in a deep voice. "You are right. This is the best way for us to go to the sacred Star City." Ma Yujie clapped and cheered. "Moreover, in the process of sneaking into the heavenly demon army, we can also accumulate our own strength," Zhuowen said in a deep voice. "What do you mean?" Ma Yujie was surprised. "My great world is very special. After being nurtured by the primordial stone and absorbing the energy of the ancient star city, the great world has been transforming. It is a little like the embryonic form of the ancient star city. It can be said that the great world can accommodate tens of millions of primordial gods without any problem. Moreover, as it continues to transform, the great world will also continue to expand and accommodate more primordial gods. While we march with the primordial heavenly demon army, we will rescue those primordial gods and nurture them into our fresh troops." Zhuowen's eyes flickered as he said in a powerful and resonant voice. Ma Yujie and Zhu Huang were shocked when they heard this. Soon after, they revealed excited expressions. Chapter 4804. After deciding to use Yun to disguise himself as a primordial sky fiend and sneak into the primordial sky fiend army to save the primordial gods in the captured star city, Ma Yujie and Zhu Huang both felt that this method was feasible. "But we have too few people, and the number of people we can save is too few. Once Star City is breached, most of the primordial gods will be killed by the primordial sky fiends. The number of people we can save will probably be very few." Ma Yujie frowned slightly and said in a low voice. Jun and Zhu Huang also frowned when they heard this. What Ma Yujie said was indeed the flaw of their method. If we communicate with the primordial gods in advance and get them to gather in one place, then we can save as many primordial gods as possible. Zhuan muttered to himself. Zhu Huang and Ma Yujie fell into silence. Suddenly, a strange sound came from the 3rd floor and attracted their attention. Zhuan, Ma Yujie, and Zhu Huang rushed up to the 3rd floor in an instant. The 3rd floor was not big. There were only 2 rooms, a bedroom and a study. The sound came from the study. Zhuan walked to the bookshelf in the study. The sound just now came from this bookshelf. Zhuan looked carefully and said in surprise, "It's a formation restriction. There should be another world behind this bookshelf." With that, Zhuan formed seals with both hands and formed a formation. Instantly, ripples appeared in front of the bookshelf, but it quickly returned to normal. "It's a very powerful formation restriction. I can't open it." Zhuan shook his head and said bitterly, "Looks like there should be a primordial god inside. Let me do it." Ma Yujie's eyes flickered as he walked to the bookshelf. Zhuan tactfully retreated a certain distance and saw Ma Yujie drawing some kind of pattern in front of the bookshelf. It's a primordial language. Zhuan looked at the complicated gray words that Ma Yujie was drawing. His pupils shrank as he immediately recognized that it was a primordial language. After Ma Yujie wrote down a line of primordial characters, he sent it out into the air. The primordial characters seemed to come alive. They passed through the formation and entered the bookshelf. After a while, new primordial text appeared behind the bookshelf. This primordial text was completely different from what Ma Yujie had written. There really is an ancient god. What do these words mean? Zhuan asked in surprise. They asked me why I was with the primordial heavenly devil and thought that I was a traitor. Ma Yujie shrugged helplessly, his gaze landing on Zhuan. Zhuan naturally knew what Ma Yujie meant. He curled his lips and exited the demonic state. Of course, Zhuan had also set up a shielding array in the surroundings to prevent the primordial heavenly demons from discovering them. Ma Yujie nodded and typed out another line of primordial characters. After waiting for a while, the formation ripples in front of the bookshelf surged and then slowly disappeared. The bookshelf also slowly opened. After that, Zhuan, Ma Yujie, and Zhu Huang were stunned to discover that two cute little girls walked out from behind the bookshelf. The two little girls had long blonde hair and short silver hair. Their skin was sparkling and their faces were as delicate as porcelain dolls. They looked very cute. Big sister said to let you in. The blonde little girl's golden eyes looked curiously at Zhuan, Ma Yujie, and Zhu Huang as she spoke in a childish voice. But let me warn you in advance. Don't play any tricks. Big sister's formation is very powerful. If you dare to mess around, you'll be courting death. The silver-haired little girl's silver eyes were filled with vigilance and coldness. Her voice was also cool. The moment she opened her mouth, she warned Zhuan, Ma Yujie, and Zhu Huang. The three of them did not know whether to laugh or cry. Come in with us. After the blonde little girl finished speaking, she held the silver-haired little girl's hand and entered the tunnel behind the bookshelf. Let's go. Ma Yujie glanced at Zhuan and Zhu Huang before he said those words and led the way. Zhuan and Zhu Huang did not say anything and followed closely behind. When the three of them entered the tunnel behind the bookshelf closed on its own. The formation ripples continuously appeared and then covered the surface of the bookshelf. Setting up a formation from afar? Zhuan glanced at the tightly closed bookshelf behind them. His eyes flickered as he thought to himself that the person who set up the formation was really skilled. As he followed the two little girls in the tunnel, Zhuan realized that the walls around the tunnel were constantly changing. At first, it was pitch black. Then, specks of starlight appeared. Then, it turned into flowers and trees. Sometimes, it turned into a wilderness. It could be said that the walls around the passageway seemed to be ever-changing, constantly switching between different scenes. What a brilliant illusion formation! Zhuan's eyes narrowed slightly. As he shuttled through the tunnel, Zhuan actually felt as if he was really in the surrounding environment. It was as if he was there and not walking in the tunnel at all. Ma Yujie and Zhu Huang's eyes were also filled with surprise. If it were not for the two little girls leading the way, they would have probably been lost in this ever-changing illusion. Hurry up and follow. If you lose them, you will be lost in this illusion formation forever. We won't be able to save you. Suddenly, the silver-haired little girl stopped and turned around to look at Zhuan, Ma Yujie, and Zhu Huang with an unfriendly gaze. Ma Yujie scratched his head and smiled embarrassedly. He hurriedly rushed over and followed closely behind the two little girls. Zhuan and Zhu Huang followed closely behind. After a while, under the guidance of the two little girls, the group arrived at a very inconspicuous open space. This open space was surrounded by a pitch-black starry sky. The twinkling starlight in the surroundings was also dim, as if it would be extinguished at any time. Where is this? Ma Yujie looked around and found that there was nothing around. He could not help but ask in confusion. The two little girls ignored him. They put their hands together in front of their chests and muttered something. Subsequently, a blazing golden light appeared in the center of the open space. This golden light became more and more blazing and finally turned into a golden vortex. Big sister is waiting for you inside. Hurry up and come in. The golden-haired little girl glanced at Jun, Mayuja, and the others. She pulled the silver-haired little girl's little hand and stepped into the golden vortex. Soon, their figures disappeared. Could this be a trap? Zhu Huang asked with uncertainty. It shouldn't be. Let's go in. Mayuja said in a deep voice and stepped into the golden vortex. Jun and Zhu Huang looked at each other and did not say anything. They also entered the golden vortex. After the three of them entered the golden whirlpool collapsed and disappeared from this strange space. Chapter 48:05. When Jun, Mayuja, and Zhu Huang slowly opened their eyes, a glaring ray of sunlight shone directly at them, forcing them to squint their eyes. However, after they had completely adapted to the blazing sunlight around them, they finally opened their eyes. Then, they were stunned to find that they were in a lush orchard. This orchard was planted with all kinds of strange flowers and fruits. Under the warm sunlight, they flickered with dazzling flowing light. In front of the orchard was a rather large manor. Other than that, the surrounding world was blank. It was as if there was nothing in this world other than the orchard and the manor. At this moment, the golden-haired and silver-haired little girls held hands and had already entered the manor's gate. In the manor, there were more than 10 children playing around. That's... Zhuowen's gaze fell on the white-dressed lady lying on a recliner not far from the children in the manor. This white-dressed lady looked very young, but she was very thin, almost skin and bones. Her lips were dry and cracked, and her entire body was filled with the aura of death. Sister. The golden-haired little girl and the silver-haired little girl walked to the recliner and obediently helped the white-dressed lady up. Guess. Please come in. The woman in the white dress stood up with great difficulty with the support of the two little girls. She looked at Zhuowen, Mayuja, and Zhu Huang with a pair of dim eyes. She opened her mouth and said in a weak voice. Although her voice was weak, it had an indescribable power that spread to the ears of the three people and resounded in their hearts. Let's go, Zhuowen said and took the lead to step into the manor. Mayuja and Zhu Huang followed closely behind. Sit. The white-dressed lady waved her skinny arm lightly. 3 chairs appeared behind Zhuowen and the other 2, and a white jade table appeared in front of them. Sister, you're not feeling well, quickly sit down. The silver-haired little girl's eyes were no longer cold. At this moment, they were filled with tenderness and worry as she spoke softly. Thank you, little Silver. The white-dressed lady rubbed the silver-haired little girl's head and smiled apologetically at Zhuowen and the other 2 before lying back on the recliner. Little Silver, little Gold. I have something to say to these 3 guests. You guys go ahead and play with your other friends. The woman in white warned the 2 little girls. The 2 little girls nodded obediently and left the place. To Zhuowen's amusement, the silver-haired little girl glared fiercely at them before she left, and she seemed to be threatening them that if they did anything wrong, she would absolutely not let them off easily. Nice to meet you 3. My name is Hong Qi. He's a native primordial god of 100 Refinement Star City. The white-dressed woman smiled at Zhuowen and the other 2 and introduced herself. My name is Zhuowen. He is Mayuja and Zhu Huang. We came from sun-traversing Star City. Zhuowen briefly introduced the 3 of them. Hong Qi was especially surprised when she heard that Zhuowen and the other 2 were related to the imperial astronomer. Of course, Zhuowen didn't say everything. He still held back. In particular, Nguyen didn't mention a word about him and Ma Yujie being Heaven's chosen children. Being Heaven's chosen children was a secret among secrets. It couldn't be casually mentioned. Moreover, this was the first time they had met Hong Qi. How could they trust her completely? After learning that Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and Zhu Huang were related to the imperial astronomer, Hong Qi's eyes became much gentler. Lord Imperial Astronomer is the person I admire the most. When the constellation gods retreated to the star cities around Sacred Star City, only Lord Imperial Astronomer fought to the end. She truly cares about the life and death of us ordinary primordial gods. If the constellation gods of the government cared about the lives of ordinary primordial gods like Lord Imperial Astronomer, the primordial gods wouldn't have fallen to such a state today. Hong Chi sighed softly. Her dim eyes were filled with resentment and helplessness. Miss Hong Chi, when we were on the second floor, you deliberately made a noise to attract our attention, didn't you? In other words, you should have been eavesdropping on our conversation all along? Zhuowen suddenly asked in a deep voice. When they were talking on the second floor, there was a sudden movement on the third floor. Zhuowen didn't believe that Hong Chi had done it unintentionally. It must have been done deliberately. Hong Chi looked deeply at Zhuowen and said, "You guessed right. I deliberately led you to the third floor. Not only this building, but the entire 100 Refining Star City is under my surveillance. I know every move of the primordial heavenly demons. It was because you talked about saving those primordial gods whose star cities had been breached that I decided to risk exposing myself to attract your attention and meet you. Because my ability can help you save the primordial gods." Hearing this, Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and Zhu Huang all looked at Hong Chi in astonishment. They were quite moved in their hearts. This Hong Chi's tone was really big. She actually dared to say that the entire 100 Refining Star City was under her surveillance. Moreover, she said that her ability could help them save the ancient gods. What kind of ability was that? I know you don't believe me. Hong Chi glanced at Zhuowen and the other two. Naturally, she could see the disbelief in their eyes. She didn't continue to argue. Instead, she gently raised her skinny right hand and pointed. Suddenly, ripples appeared in the void above. Then, pictures appeared clearly in the eyes of Zhuowen and the other two. What surprised Zhuowen and the other two was that these pictures were actually scenes in every corner of the 100 Refining Star City. There were also scenes of primordial heavenly demons devouring corpses. There were also scenes of primordial heavenly demons fighting with each other. There were also scenes of groups of primordial gods being imprisoned in cages by primordial heavenly demons. Zhuowen and the other two were visibly moved. They were naturally familiar with these scenes. These scenes were exactly what had happened in the 100 Refinement Star City. They were also very familiar with some of the scenes. What a heaven-defying ability! Then this space is... Ma Yujie said in shock. This space is actually my dreamland space. However, this space is not real or illusory. It exists between reality and illusion. As long as you enter this space, you will fall into a dreamland. However, your physical bodies will also enter some kind of alternate space. I relied on this ability to pull some young primordial gods who couldn't fight into my dreamland space at the first moment when the heavenly demon army broke through the 100 Refining Star City. Speaking up to here, Hong Chi looked at the dozen or so children on the other side of the manor. Her eyes revealed a gentle look. Apart from the dozen or so young primordial gods here, is there anyone else? Zhuowen asked in surprise. I pulled most of the young primordial gods in the Star City into my dreamland space. However, they are scattered in various places in the Star City. This is one of my dreamland spaces. It just so happened that I noticed you and heard your plan. That's why I led you in. After saying that, Hong Chi stared at Zhuowen and asked, "What you said before, is it all true? Can your great world really accommodate millions of primordial gods?" Chapter 4806. It's true. If you really have this ability, we can save many primordial gods. Zhuowen looked at Crimson Chi with bright eyes. With Crimson Chi's ability, she could pull many primordial gods into the dreamscape space and hide them. He only needed to follow Crimson Chi's instructions and take the primordial gods into the dreamscape space one by one. Also, when I first saw you, you were full of primordial demonic chi, just like a real primordial god. What's going on? Crimson Chi stared at Zhuowen, her eyes full of fear and dread. I once cultivated a demonic book. I used this demonic book to absorb primordial demonic chi, so I can perfectly simulate primordial demonic chi and disguise myself as a real primordial heavenly demon. Zhuowen said calmly. Although Crimson Chi was still puzzled, she could tell that Zhuowen was not lying. Can you let me see your dreamscape space? Crimson Chi asked after a moment of silence. Of course. Zhuowen nodded and opened the entrance to the dreamscape space, showing everything in it to Crimson Chi. Red's dim eyes scanned the outside world, and a glimmer of hope flickered in his eyes. You really didn't lie. Your dreamscape space is really extraordinary. Crimson Chi clicked her tongue in wonder and looked at Zhuowen in a completely different light. Okay, then let's bring all the young primordial gods in your dreamscape space. By the way, why did you only choose the young primordial gods? What about the adult primordial gods? Zhuowen suddenly looked at Crimson Chi. It seemed that she had only pulled the young primordial gods into the dreamscape space, not the adult primordial gods. The adult primordial gods are too powerful, especially their wills. They are much more complex and powerful than the young primordial gods. There are too many adult primordial gods for my divine telekinesis to bear. Crimson Chi smiled bitterly and continued, that's why I only saved the simple-minded young primordial gods. This way, I can save more and the dreamscape space won't collapse. Hearing this, Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and Zhu Huang finally understood. Then, you became like this because of this ability? Zhuowen looked at the skinny woman in front of him and said in a low voice. Hong Qi was stunned. She nodded and said, there are too many people in the dream space. All kinds of thoughts will fill my mind. As long as I close my eyes, I will have nightmares. Every time I have nightmares, it will consume a lot of my energy. From then on, I never closed my eyes again and rarely rested. My body deteriorated day by day, becoming worse and worse. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie exchanged glances, feeling rather moved in their hearts. Crimson Morning's ability was indeed very powerful, but the price was too high. As long as she was alive, she could not rest. She could not even close her eyes. It was simply torture. Although at their level of cultivation, they didn't need to sleep at all. They only needed to close their eyes and meditate to quickly recover their energy. However, Hong Qi had obviously lost this right. She could not even close her eyes and meditate. It was no wonder that she was becoming more and more haggard, and her eyes were dim and lifeless. Let's not talk about this. Jun, please bring these children into your big world first, and then I will take you to other dream spaces. Hong Qi stood up with difficulty and smiled at Sun. Zhuowen's eyes showed a trace of pity. He hurried forward to support her, but he found that Hong Qi's arm was so thin that it was only skin and bones. If not for the skin on her arm, Yun would have thought that he was touching a skeleton. Thank you. Hong Qi smiled kindly at Yun. Then, with his help, she walked to a group of children who were still playing on the other side of the manor. Everyone, gather. Sister is calling us. The blonde little girl and the silver-haired little girl were obviously the leaders of this group of children. When they saw Hong Qi coming over, they immediately waved their arms and called for the group of children to gather in front of Hong Qi. Don't touch sister. Let us do it. The silver-haired little girl hurriedly snatched Hong Qi's arm from Zhuowen's hands and snorted at Zhuowen. The blonde little girl supported Hong Qi from the other side. Little gold, little silver, and everyone, I have good news to tell you. Hong Qi showed a gentle smile and repeated Zhuowen's words. She also told them about Zhuowen's big world. After hearing this, the group of children could not help but look at Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and Zhu Huang with their big eyes. The silver-haired little girl, who was originally hostile to Zhuowen and the other two, also looked at them in a new light. Can the big world you speak of really bring us to a safe place? The silver-haired little girl came forward and asked in a low voice. She twisted her little hands together and glanced to the side. As long as I am alive, I will definitely protect you. I will never put your lives in any danger. Zhuowen said solemnly. Thank you. You are a good person. Suddenly, the silver-haired little girl held Zhuowen's right hand and looked up with a bright smile. Zhuowen smiled and rubbed the silver-haired little girl's little head with his left hand. He said, you are the future of the Archean gods. When you grow up, you will definitely be able to protect your home and drive out those Archean demons. We definitely can. The silver-haired little girl's eyes were filled with determination. Then, Zhuowen put more than 10 children into the big world and looked at Hong Qi. Miss Hong Qi, please take us to another dream space. Zhuowen said in a low voice. No problem. Hong Qi smiled and waved her skinny arm gently. The surrounding environment suddenly changed. The surrounding manor and orchards disappeared. What appeared in front of Zhuowen and the other two was a lush forest. In the middle of the forest, there were several huge tree holes with rooms set up in them. At this moment, there were many children playing inside and outside the tree holes. When Zhuowen and the others appeared in the open space, the children stopped what they were doing and looked at Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and the others with vigilance. However, when Hongqi appeared, the wariness in the children's eyes disappeared and was replaced by joy. Sister. Many children ran towards Hongqi, calling her big sister Hongqi. Hongqi did the same, introducing Zhuowen and the other two before explaining the purpose of this trip. These children had 100% trust in Hongqi, so they gladly entered Zhuowen's great world. Then Hongqi led Zhuowen and the other two to new dream spaces and took in more young Archean gods. Chapter 4807. When Zhuowen and Hongqi put the last child in the dreamscape into the great world, they returned to the dreamscape from the very beginning. This time, Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and the rest had a good harvest. Hongqi had saved nearly 10,000 young immemorial gods, and some of them had good aptitudes. In the manor, Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, Zhu Huang, and Hongqi sat opposite each other. In front of them were various rare fruits, all of which were planted in the orchard. To Zhuowen's surprise, although this was the dreamland space, the rare fruits planted in this orchard actually had a trace of benefit to the soul. Although it was not obvious, Zhuowen still sensed it. Although the dream space is my special ability, it is controlled by my divine soul. Therefore, everything you see in it is just my divine soul's manifestation. The fruits you eat are naturally formed by my divine soul's power. Eating them will be beneficial to your divine soul. Of course, my divine soul is not very strong, so the benefits will not be very great. Seeing Zhuowen's surprised expression, Hongqi explained the doubts in Zhuowen's heart as if she could predict the future. I see. No wonder you only saved young immemorial gods. Ma Yujie was enlightened. The divine soul of an adult immemorial god was too strong, and their thoughts were too complicated. Hongqi's dream space might not be able to hold many adult immemorial gods. If Hongqi wanted to save as many people as possible, she could only start with the young immemorial gods. Hongqi nodded, and her dim eyes fell on Zhuowen. Zhuowen, we will rely on you now. Since you can perfectly simulate the aura of the immemorial divine demons, you can blend into the immemorial divine demon army. You just need to follow this army. Every time we capture a star city, I can use my ability to save as many young immemorial gods as possible. As for the other immemorial gods, you can think of a way, but the prerequisite is that you do not alert the enemy. Ma Yujie sighed. In the end, we are still too weak. If I can surpass the power of the constellation god, I can ignore these immemorial divine demons and start to recover the lost lands in the immemorial star system. This is the safest method we can think of now. With our current strength, it is not suitable to fight force with force. We can only use this method to save as many as we can. Zhuowen said in a deep voice. Ma Yujie looked at Zhuowen and said, Brother Zhuo, I think you should be breaking through to the immemorial god soon. If you really break through to the immemorial divine soul, do you really plan to leave the immemorial star system? Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded and said, yes. However, that would have to wait until he saw Lord Jinsu. Didn't Lord Imperial Astronomer say that? He has something to give us, something to give us. Ma Yujie sighed and did not say anything. Although he did not want Zhuowen to leave the immemorial star system, he knew that Zhuowen had to go back. Zhuowen had already gathered all the primordial Grand Mist stones and was qualified to undergo the primordial Grand Mist tree's trial. Once he succeeded, Zhuowen would inherit the primordial Grand Mist tree's essence origin and obtain the ultimate power. Of course, Ma Yujie also had the ultimate power he wanted to inherit, but he did not even have a shadow of it. It seemed like he could only wait until he met Lord Jinsu to find out what it was. You know Lord Jinsu God? Hongqi's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, and she could not help but look at Zhuowen and Ma Yujie with a strange look in her eyes. Yes. We plan to go to the sacred star city to meet Lord Jinsu. Ma Yujie nodded. Hongqi took a deep look at Zhuowen and Ma Yujie. She nodded without saying anything. She was a smart woman. Although she wanted to ask the two of them to ask the Junsu god to save the immemorial gods who were in deep trouble, she knew that it was impractical. In the face of such a terrifying army of immemorial heavenly demons, the strength of a single constellation god was too weak. Asking the Junsu god to fight was akin to asking him to seek his own death. Moreover, the other constellation gods' hearts were not united. Hongqi's heart gradually sank into despair. She knew that the fate of the immemorial gods was sealed and could not be changed. But what comforted Crimson Desolation was that at least for now, she could still do her best to save some innocent young immemorial gods. As for the future, it was not something she could consider now. Next, I will find a way to sneak into the army of immemorial heavenly demons. You guys can enter my great world first. Zhuan looked at Hongqi, Ma Yujie, and Zhu Huang. The three of them naturally had no objections. After the three of them entered Zhuan's great world, Zhuan stepped out and left Hongqi's dream world. Zhuan appeared in front of the bookshelf on the third floor of the building again. At this moment, there was a commotion on the first floor and a terrifying demonic aura swept over. Zhuan narrowed his eyes and instantly entered the demonic state. His skin turned dark green and he looked like a real immemorial heavenly demon. Soon, several immemorial heavenly demons rushed up and smashed open the door of the third floor. They looked at Zhuan in front of the bookshelf with unfriendly eyes. There was a fluctuation of a divine array here just now. Did you find anything? The leader of the immemorial heavenly demon was abnormally tall and sturdy. His head was full of iron lumps and his aura was even more terrifying. This immemorial heavenly demon was actually a low-level heavenly demon and was considered a centurion in the army. Zhuan's eyes flickered and he nodded. I did find something. Just now, when I was searching this place, I accidentally touched this bookshelf, and then some kind of array formation ripple appeared on it, blocking me outside. The heavenly demon with iron lumps on his head looked at the bookshelf with his scarlet eyes. He thought for a moment and suddenly stepped out and punched the bookshelf. Boom! Suddenly, the bookshelf exploded and a terrifying array ripple violently blocked it. The entire building could not withstand the energy and collapsed with a loud bang. Zhuan stepped lightly with his right foot and left the building early. The heavenly demon floated up from the ruins and looked at the sky with bright eyes. A deep and dark passageway appeared where the bookshelf was originally located. Since you found this place, you go in first. The immemorial heavenly demon glanced at Zhuan with his scarlet eyes and said with a hideous smile. Zhuan looked hesitant. The immemorial heavenly demon snorted coldly. You don't dare? Sir, you have my orders. How could I not dare? Zhuan pretended to have made up his mind. He walked to the entrance of the tunnel and hesitated for a moment. Then he made up his mind and went in. After a while, Zhuan came out and said with disappointment, Sir, this is a strange space. There is nothing inside. I'll go in and take a look. Seeing that Zhuan was fine, the immemorial heavenly demon nodded and entered the tunnel with his two subordinates. Chapter 4808. Not long after, the iron lump heavenly demon walked out and said with a strange look in his eyes, This should be some kind of space built by an ancient god. It gives people the feeling of being in a dream when they enter. There should be an ancient god hiding here before. But now that there's no one here, I wonder where the primordial god who was hiding here went. After muttering to himself, the iron lump heavenly demon's gaze fell on Zhuan. You're very honest. What's your name and whose subordinate are you? The iron lump heavenly demon sized up Zhuan and asked indifferently. Zhuan lowered his head and said softly, Sir, this lowly one's name is Emowen, my superior. He died in this battle. This lowly one was lucky enough to survive. I don't know what to do now. Seeing that Zhuan's superior was dead, the iron lump heavenly demon did not continue to ask. He said in a deep voice, Since your superior is dead, then follow me. There are still many battles to come. As long as you perform well, I won't treat you unfairly. Zhuan immediately revealed a look of wild joy. In the eyes of the iron lump heavenly demon, he looked completely like a recruit. There was no doubt in his heart. Next, Yuan was assigned to his team by the Iron Lump Heavenly Demon, and Yuan finally knew the name of the Iron Lump Heavenly Demon, Emotai. After being assigned to Emotai's team, Yuan was extremely low-key. He rarely chatted with the other heavenly demons, and was faintly isolated in the team. Of course, Yuan disdained to chat with these heavenly demons. Instead of chatting with them, he might as well use this time to cultivate. In the heavenly demon army's barracks, Yuan was either cultivating or doing things according to Emotai's requirements. Other than cultivating the primordial technique, he would also cultivate the limitless devil scripture. The demon infant in the devil domain was a scourge after all. Yuan planned to refine the power of the demon shadow for his own use as soon as possible. This way, his strength would increase greatly, and most heavenly demons would not be his match. Of course, Yuan's main focus was still on the primordial grandmist technique. To him, the limitless devil tome's power could only be used as a supplement and not as his main focus. After all, the only thing that could defeat the heavenly devil king in the future was definitely not the primordial grandmist technique, but the primordial grandmist technique and the primordial grandmist tree's origin energy. Another half a month later, the heavenly demon army that had stayed in the 100 Refinement Star City finally set off for the next Star City. The next Star City was called Green Radiance Star City. It was one of the many star cities on the way to Sacred Star City. When the celestial demon army arrived at Green Radiance Star City, Yuan discovered that most of the elite primeval gods in the city had already retreated. The rest were ordinary and weak primordial gods and young primordial gods. The heavenly fiend army did not even suffer much damage and easily took down Green Radiance Star City. Yuan asked Hongqi to use her special ability in advance to put all the young ancient gods in the Green Radiance Star City into the dream space. When Yuan rushed into the Star City, when the Sky Demon army wasn't paying attention, he kept saving those who were still alive. Primordial gods. However, the Sky Demon army was simply too big. They showed no mercy to the primordial gods. The number of primordial gods that Yuan could save was limited. This one-sided massacre lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. Nearly 2/3 of the primordial gods in Green Radiance Star City were killed. The remaining 1/3 were either seriously injured or imprisoned by the primordial heavenly demons and sent to the rear as slaves. After a few days, the Sky Demon army continued to advance towards the next Star City. Time continued to pass. The Sky Demon army was also getting closer to Sacred Star City. The number of primordial gods that died was also increasing. Yuan and Hongqi's cooperation was also becoming more and more tacit. The number of primordial gods they saved was also increasing. Soon, the number exceeded 1 million. Finally, the Sky Demon army that Yuan was part of arrived at the last Star City in the 18 cities surrounding Sacred Star City. This Star City was Bloodshed Star City. Although most of the elite primordial gods in Bloodshed Star City had retreated to the 18 cities surrounding Sacred Star City, there were still several elite primordial gods in this Star City. These elite primordial gods commanded Bloodshed Star City to fight the Sky Demon army to the death. They would never surrender. In the end, this battle lasted for several months. Both the primordial gods and the Sky Demon army suffered disastrous casualties. In the end, the Sky Demon army won a Pyrrhic victory. Yuan even experienced several life-threatening situations. He almost died on the spot. Fortunately, his reaction was fast and he had many trump cards. He managed to avert the danger. The final result of this battle was that no one in Bloodshed Star City surrendered. When the city was breached, the remaining 10,000 primordial gods self-detonated, killing many primordial heavenly demons who had entered the city. In the end, the Sky Demon army of 1 million was reduced to several tens of thousands of defeated soldiers. From this, one could see how desperate this battle was. Yuan was walking at the very back of the Sky Demon army. He personally saw the 10,000 self-detonating lights. He was completely shocked by the countless lights. In truth, Bloodshed Star City had won this battle. Bloodshed Star City had relied on only ordinary primordial gods to fight the Sky Demon army of 1 million elites under the precondition that their elites had all retreated. In the end, the Sky Demon army was reduced to several tens of thousands of defeated soldiers. One had to admit that Bloodshed Star City was truly great. I will not hesitate to dye the sky red with blood. I will kill 1,000,000 enemies and make you all pay the price. Zhuan recalled the words of the Bloodshed Star City's leader before he self-detonated. He could not help but feel deep veneration for him. Among the primordial gods, there are still many hot-blooded warriors. It's a pity. If those constellation gods were like that general, the primordial gods would not have reached such a stage. Zhuan sighed in his heart. He really did not have the slightest favorable impression of the majority of the constellation gods. Brother Ma, the imperial astronomers said that the primordial gods need a true king to lead them out of their predicament. This king is you. If you really obtain the power of a god king and obtain the supreme authority, you must punish those constellation gods who do nothing. Gods. Zhuan communicated with Ma Yujie in the great world through his mind. His tone was gloomy. Brother Zhua, there is no need for you to tell me. I know what to do. Those constellation gods who do nothing should be hacked into 1,000 pieces. Even if they die 10,000 times, they will not be able to absolve themselves from the blame. Ma Yujie said with a cold gaze. Zhuan nodded inwardly. Sitting on the dilapidated walls of Bloodshed Star City, he raised his head and looked into the distance. Over there, dark clouds covered the sky. It was as though the world was covered by a layer of hazy cover. Zhuan knew that their destination, Sacred Star City, was extremely far away from them, and this Sky Demon army of theirs was the earliest army to arrive. They were currently stationed here temporarily to wait for the rest of the Sky Demon army, after which they would reorganize their army and begin to attack the 18 core star cities of the Sacred Star City region. Chapter 4809. Who would have thought? This primordial god of Bloodshed Star City is so reckless that he actually caused our immemorial heavenly demon army to suffer such heavy casualties. This is truly 8 lifetimes of bad luck. Mo Tai cursed as he walked over. He was still chewing something in his mouth, and the corners of his mouth were filled with black blood that kept flowing down. Zhuan glanced at Mo Tai and sighed inwardly. This Mo Tai's luck was really good. The 1,000,000 heavenly demon army had been wiped out, and only a few tens of thousands were left. With so many dead, this Mo Tai actually managed to survive. Moen, there are so many corpses over there. Why don't you go over and devour them? Otherwise, the good stuff will be snatched away by others. After swallowing the thing in his mouth, Mo Tai gestured to Zhuan with his mouth, indicating that Zhuan should quickly devour the corpses in Star City. Zhuan nodded and flew out into the depths of Star City without saying a word. This brat is quite greedy. Those corpses are not enough for him to pick, and he still wants to go deep into Star City. Mo Tai looked at Zhuan's departing figure and laughed. He did not think too much about it. This time, after devouring so many good things, I think I will soon break through to become a middle-grade heavenly demon. If this daddy's luck continues to be so good, I should be able to become a high-grade heavenly demon in a few years. At that time, I will become a commander. Mo Tai muttered to himself. His pair of scarlet eyes revealed a trace of hope. Immemorial heavenly demons could rapidly increase their strength due to their ability to devour. But at the same time, they also died very quickly and could easily become nutrients for other heavenly demons. Although there were only a few tens of thousands of heavenly demon army left behind, they were all elites who survived. By devouring their own kind, they continued to increase their strength and accumulated more battle experience. It could be said that this was a very terrifying heavenly demon army. After leaving the heavenly demon army, Yuan came to a remote alley. His mind was communicating with Hong Qi in the outside world. Hong Qi, how many young immemorial gods did you pull into the dreamland space this time? Zhuan asked in a low voice. However, Hong Qi did not reply to him even after a long time. Zhuan had a bad feeling about this. Brother Zhua, if you're safe, go to the great world first. Hong Qi is dying. Suddenly, Ma Yujie's voice resounded in Zhuan's mind, causing Zhuan to be stunned. Zhuan looked around and saw that there were no primordial heavenly demons around. Furthermore, He had set up a concealment array. With a thought, he entered the Great World. After Zhuowen's Great World had undergone several transformations, it had become extremely vast. Not only was it brimming with energy, but it was also brimming with life. Many creatures had begun to establish various civilizations within the Great World. Moreover, Zhuowen's current Great World was no longer just a simple world. Many planes had appeared. Each plane was equivalent to an independent small world, and the countless planes formed the vast Great World. And the main plane of the Zhuowen Great World was the world of the Central Island. This world was the initial world when Zhuowen's Great World was first formed. Now that the Great World had transformed, this world naturally became the main world, and then it continued to expand. After entering the Great World, Yun appeared on the Central Island. At this moment, outside the attic of the Central Island, there was a group of people. Zhuowen saw Ma Yujie, Zhu Huang, Sherpatian, and many children. And in the center of them, there was a young woman who was as thin as a stick. She lay quietly on the old-fashioned wooden armchair. Her almost sunken cheeks were full of serenity. Two little girls with golden hair and silver hair, who were like porcelain dolls, quietly waited beside the skinny woman. The corners of their eyes were already full of tears. "Brother Zhua." Ma Yujie came forward and sighed softly, his eyes full of sorrow. "When did Hong Qi start?" Zhuowen's eyes fell on Hong Qi. His heart trembled violently, and he asked in a low voice. At this moment, Hong Qi's body was filled with the aura of death. If not for her weak breathing, she would be equivalent to a dried corpse. When we saved the young primordial god in the third star city, Hong Qi was already faintly unable to hold on. Her body became thinner and weaker in the process of overusing her special ability. Ma Yujie said in a low voice. "What? She was already overloaded in the third star city?" Zhuowen's pupils shrank. During this period, they had followed the heavenly demon army all the way to the east and passed by 9-star cities. And Hong Qi was already overloading her special ability in the third star city. Didn't that mean that she was risking her life to use her ability in the next 6-star cities? "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Zhuowen stared at Ma Yujie and asked. Although he knew that Hong Qi's use of this special ability would burden her soul, he thought that Hong Qi would control it. If she really could not bear it, she would naturally tell him. Once Hong Qi mentioned it, Zhuowen naturally would not let her continue using this ability. However, he did not expect Hong Qi to hide all of this from him. She had been risking her life to use her ability to save people. "I'm sorry." Ma Yujie lowered his head and apologized with a face full of shame. "Yun, don't blame Ma Yujie. This is not his fault. I asked him to do this." Hong Qi's eyes were full of calmness, and her illusory voice sounded in Zhuowen's mind. Zhuowen raised his head and met Hong Qi's protruding eyes. In those eyes, Zhuowen did not see a trace of fear of death. Instead, there was calmness like a pool of water. Saving the primordial god is my mission, and also his duty. So, I have to do this. Even if I don't risk my life to save people, I won't be able to live for long in my current state. Hong Qi smiled slightly. However, that smile made Zhuowen's heart full of complicated feelings and self-blame. Zhuowen did not blame Ma Yujie anymore. He just patted the latter's shoulder gently and walked along the path that separated the crowd until he was in front of Hong Qi. Zhuowen did not say a word. He just stood in front of Hong Qi and looked at her silently. His emotions were very complicated and he did not know how to face Hong Qi. "Zhuowen, you don't have to blame yourself. This is all my decision. I can't hold on for much longer. I hope you can protect these children well. If possible, please educate them well. They will be the hope of the primordial gods in the future. Even if the primordial star system is completely occupied by the primordial divine demons. As long as they don't die, as long as you don't die, the primordial gods will not perish and the primordial star system will not be completely destroyed." Hong Qi said softly. Her voice was hoarse and dry, but to everyone, it was like the sound of nature. "Can you promise me?" Hong Qi stared at Zhuowen calmly. "I promise you," Zhuowen said seriously. Chapter 48:10. The whole book translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, thank you. Hong Chi smiled sweetly. Although she was as thin as a matchstick and was surrounded by death chi, her smile was beautiful in the eyes of Zhuan and everyone else. As a gift of thanks, I will give you something. I hope you don't mind it. As Hong Chi spoke, she stretched out her skinny right hand and gently grasped Zhuan's palm. Zhuan was stunned. He did not resist, but completely relaxed his mind. Although he did not know what Hong Chi was going to give him, he knew that she would not harm him. Naturally, he did not need to be on guard. Suddenly, Hong Chi's body emitted a crystal-clear light. Then, a strange power flowed along Hong Chi's arm and into Zhuowen's arm and body. At this moment, Zhuowen felt warm all over, as if he was lying under the morning sun, basking in the warmth of the sun. Zhuowen realized that many different scenes appeared in his mind. These scenes were varied and different from each other. There were lush forests, endless deserts, and fields with blue seas and blue skies. These scenes made Zhuowen feel as if he was in a dream. When Zhuowen woke up, Hong Chi had already let go of his hand. Hong Chi looked even weaker, and the death chi around her had become much stronger. Zhuowen, my special ability is called All Things in the World. This ability has been passed down from generation to generation in my family. All things in the world is the power of all things. It follows the flow of all things and contains the ability to reincarnate reality and illusion. This ability uses the divine soul as the driving force and can erupt with incredible power. The more powerful and special the divine soul is, the more powerful and terrifying the power of all things in the world is. Several of my ancestors have defeated the real constellation deities with this ability. However, this ability of my family is too terrifying. It has been coveted by many Archean deities. In the end, my family was almost wiped out. Only a few people survived. But even these few people have been separated from each other for a long time. No one knows where they have gone. Our lineage, on the other hand, concealed our identities and lived in seclusion, no longer interfering with the affairs of the world. It has been passed down to my generation, and I am the only one left. I was born with a weak soul, and the power I can exert is but a drop in the ocean. In the end, I can only create some dream spaces that are between reality and illusion. At this point, Hong Chi looked up at Zhuowen and said, "My lifespan has come to an end, but I don't want this ability to be lost. There's no one left in my family who can use it. Right now, you are the best candidate. I hope you can make good use of this ability." Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He didn't expect Hong Chi to have such a tragic past. Also, Hong Chi's ability was so terrifying. There was once an ancestor who defeated the constellation god. Don't you hate the ancient gods? After all, it was the primordial god who caused the destruction of your family and ultimately made you a loner. Zhuowen said with a complicated expression. Hong Chi was stunned. Then she shook her head and said, "If you want to talk about hatred, of course I do. But I don't hate the entire ancient gods. I hate the ancient gods who destroyed my family. Everything has a good side and a bad side. It's impossible for me to hate the entire ancient gods because of a part of the scum. Because my family and I are part of the ancient gods." "Why do you have to give it to me?" Zhuowen asked after a moment of silence. "It's not that I chose you. It's that they chose you." Hong Chi's eyes fell on the surroundings. Zhuowen followed Hong Chi's gaze and looked around. He saw pairs of children's eyes. "I saw you in their eyes, and they must have seen hope in you." Hong Chi smiled and stretched out her right hand to touch Zhuowen's cheek. But her hand stopped halfway and then slowly fell down. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He stretched out his right hand and held Hong Chi's skinny right hand in his palm. Cold. Lifeless coldness. Zhuowen looked at Hong Chi, who was lying on the recliner with her eyes closed and a smile on her face. He slowly knelt on one knee and gently placed her hand on her knee. Then, Zhuowen saw Hong Chi's body glowing. The light became brighter and brighter, shooting straight into the sky. Finally, Hong Chi's body dissipated into countless light spots and gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. "Hong Chi, I understand. Leave them to me." I will let the fire of hope burn fiercely and burn the entire ancient star system. Zhuan murmured softly. Sister. Sister. Countless children knelt down and called out the name they often used to call Hongqi. Their voices were mournful and sad. Ma Yujie and Zhu Huang also slowly closed their eyes and knelt on one knee. They bowed to Hongqi's body with heavy hearts. Zhuan personally took the best jade from the outside world and erected a huge tombstone for Hongqi. The tombstone was erected on the island at the center of the outside world. Brother Ma, Senior Zhu Huang, I will leave these children in your care in the future. I hope you can pass on your cultivation methods to them. Of course, I will also pass down my primordial technique in its entirety. Hongqi is right. They are all hope. The hope of the ancient gods and the hope of the countless living beings in the ancient star system. Zhuan raised his head and looked at Ma Yujie and Zhu Huang with a solemn expression after he finished erecting the tombstone. Brother Zhua, don't worry, I have already begun to teach them cultivation methods during this period of time. Moreover, we have also selected some good seedlings and have begun to let them teach each other. As the saying goes, it is better to teach a man to fish than to give him a fish. Ma Yujie nodded. Zhu Huang smiled and said, the ancient god's bloodline is indeed very outstanding. Their talents are much stronger than the dragon race. They have also learned the divine abilities I taught them in an instant. What they lack most is cultivation resources. Zhuan nodded and said, I will think of a way to get them cultivation resources. You should first lay a good foundation for them. After instructing Ma Yujie and Zhu Huang, Zhuan pulled Sherpatian over and made him acknowledge Ma Yujie and Zhu Huang as his masters. During this period of time, Sherpatian was not in the mood to cultivate at all. He had been hanging out with the young ancient gods in the outside world. Sherpatian's strength was not as strong as those young ancient gods, but he relied on his knowledge of the outside world like the back of his hand to proclaim himself as the boss. He even formed his own faction and scared those young ancient gods into a daze. Some young ancient gods who did not know what was going on actually acknowledged him as their master. Great. The next time I see you flaunting your power in front of others, you won't be as lucky as this time. Zhuan sternly lectured Sherpatian. Master, little Tian doesn't dare, I really don't dare. I will definitely cultivate properly. Sherpatian hurriedly said. Seeing that Sherpatian was much more obedient, Zhuan let him go and engraved the complete primordial technique into a jade slip and handed it to Ma Yujie. Chapter 48:11. Brother Zhua, are you really going to give me the complete primordial chant? Ma Yujie held the jade slip that Mu Feng gave him and chuckled, but there was a complicated look in his eyes. Mu Feng patted Ma Yujie's head and said, I'm giving it to you so that you can pass it down. The complete version of the primordial chant is an extremely amazing technique in the entire immemorial star system. I think that after these young immemorial gods cultivate it, they will advance very quickly. Ma Yujie quickly put away the jade slip and naturally agreed. Mu Feng saw these young immemorial gods as his hope, but how could he, Ma Yujie, not? That's right. Previously, you were unwilling to send a message to Lord Zhensu. Now that we are at the core of the 18 cities around Sacred Star City, we should be able to contact Lord Zhensu, right? Ma Yujie looked at Mu Feng and suddenly asked. Previously, because the immemorial heavenly demon army had been approaching Sacred Star City, it was too dangerous to let the Zhensu god come to pick them up. After all, every heavenly demon army had at least 2 true demons. If the Zhensu god came to pick them up personally, it would be too dangerous. Therefore, although Mu Feng and Ma Yujie had the Zhensu god's contact method, they did not dare to take the initiative to contact her. Now that they were very close to Sacred Star City, Ma Yujie thought that it was about time to contact the Zhensu god. Mu Feng nodded and said, after I go out, I will find a chance to contact Lord Zhensu. And I think that the best time to pick us up is when the 2 armies are fighting. Ma Yujie nodded, naturally understanding Mu Feng's meaning. Now that the heavenly demon army was close, the Sacred Star City was heavily guarded. Even if the Zhensu god appeared, the city gates would definitely not open. Brother Ma, I'll leave the matters of the outside world to you. Mu Feng glanced at my Yujia, then with a stomp of his foot, disappeared from the outside world. After Mu Feng left the outside world, he reappeared in the remote alley. Seeing that there were no heavenly demons around, Mu Feng took out a golden jade slip. This golden jade slip had been given to him by the constellation god of the chariot constellation before he left. It was for the convenience of communication. Ever since the heavenly chasm, Mu Feng had not used this jade slip even once. This time, it finally came in handy. Mu Feng used a jade slip to send his current location, as well as information about the imperial astronomer. After doing all this, Mu Feng removed the concealment array formation and walked out of the alley, blending into the heavenly devil army. Inside Sacred Star City, in a majestic palace, the constellation god of Zhen constellation slammed her palm on a translucent table, glaring furiously at the 4 stalwart figures seated at the front. Horn Mansion, Do Mansion, Kuei Mansion, and Well Mansion. What right do you have to hide such an important decision from me and the other constellation gods? What right do you have to abandon the other star cities? The constellation god's eyes were filled with rage as he glared at the 4 imposing figures sitting at the front and roared. This palace was very large, and in the center was a large ring-shaped table. This was the meeting table for the constellation gods. This time, the 4 paragons of Horn, Do, Kuei, and Well had gathered all the constellation gods in Sacred Star City to discuss how to deal with the attack of the archaic heavenly devil army. The constellation god and several other constellation gods had been kept in the dark. Only now did they learn that the 4 paragons had decided to abandon all the star cities in the northern 7 constellations starfield and concentrate their forces on Sacred Star City and the surrounding 18 cities. In the eyes of the constellation god of Zhen constellation, this decision was simply treasonous. As constellation gods, they ruled over countless primeval gods and enjoyed the highest treatment and resources. In the face of danger, they were obligated to fight for their subjects and protect them. But the 4 paragons of Horn, Do, Kuei, and Well were the exact opposite. They viewed ordinary primeval gods as worthless chess pieces that could be discarded at will. Instead, they viewed their lives, status, and authority as extremely important. These 4 paragons were not worthy of ruling over the other constellation gods, much less enjoying supreme authority over the other primeval gods. Impudent! Jinsu, who do you think you are? Do you think you have the right to teach us, the paragons, a lesson? Do Su was a burly man with red tattoos on his face. His eyes were cold as he stood up and stared at Jinsu coldly. A terrifying aura faintly emanated from him and pressed down on Jinsu. Dosu, who do I think I am? You paragons are truly ungrateful. You can become paragons and rule over so many territories and subjects, not because of yourselves, but because of the countless primeval gods. I may not have the right to teach you 4 paragons a lesson, but I have the right to teach you a lesson on behalf of the countless subjects that you have killed. You really don't deserve to be paragons. You are all worse than pigs and dogs. The constellation god of Zhen constellation glared at Do Su, not to be outdone. How dare you? Do you really think I don't dare to attack you? Do you think I don't dare to kill you? The constellation god of Do Su was enraged. His aura suddenly became sharp and carried a terrifying killing intent. Many constellation gods present were shocked. They never thought that Jin Su would actually dare to go against a paragon like Do Su. Did he really not want to live anymore? Then try to kill me. Zhen Su was not to be outdone. Just as the two were about to confront each other, the constellation god of Horn coughed a few times and said indifferently, "Please calm down. If there is any conflict, sit down and talk it out. It will be resolved." Constellation god of Horn. This Zhen Su is too presumptuous, no different from a traitor. To deal with a traitor, just execute him directly, so that he won't harm our primeval gods. The constellation god of Do Su said coldly. The constellation god of Horn frowned slightly and said coldly, "Constellation god of Do Su, I hope you can consider the overall situation. What time is it now? How can you say such words? Do you want our primeval gods to be exterminated?" The constellation god of Do-su's expression changed slightly. He coldly glanced at the constellation god of Horn, retracted his aura, and slowly sat back down. Shinsu, I know you are not convinced, but we have our considerations when making this decision. Now is the moment of life and death for our primeval gods. If you still make trouble now, aren't you afraid of becoming a sinner for all eternity? The constellation god of Horn looked at the constellation god of Horn and earnestly advised. The constellation god of Horn did not buy the constellation god of Horn's words. He sneered and said, "You have your own selfish motives, don't you? If you don't give me a valid explanation today, I will continue to waste my time here with you." The constellation god of Do-su was furious. As soon as he stood up, he was glared at by the constellation god of Horn and sat back down. Chapter 48:12. Chariot Constellation. Since you want an explanation, I'll give it to you. The chariot constellation god waved his sleeve, and an image appeared on the round table. In the image, a constellation god was fighting with a true demon. The battle between the two of them was extremely intense. It was earth-shattering, causing the sun and moon to dim. In the end, the true demon was killed by the constellation god. However, the constellation god was severely injured and on the verge of death. The chariot constellation god's face changed when he saw the constellation god being devoured. He knew the constellation god of the winnowing constellation. He remembered that when he was severely injured and recovering in the sacred star city, the constellation god of the winnowing constellation came to visit him and said that he would replace him to guard the natural moat. The constellation god of the winnowing constellation asked him for advice on how to guard the natural moat. The chariot constellation god imparted his experience to him, and his relationship with the constellation god of the winnowing constellation god became very good. However, he didn't expect that the constellation god of the winnowing constellation god couldn't escape and died near the natural moat. Why are you showing me the image of the constellation god of the winnowing constellation god's death? The chariot constellation god looked at the chariot constellation god coldly. The chariot constellation god looked at the chariot constellation god and said, "You'll know if you continue watching." The chariot constellation god had no choice but to continue watching patiently. Soon the image changed. A crack appeared in the void, and a man wearing a devil mask appeared in the void with two true demons, the bull head and the dragon head. It was the heavenly demon king. The chariot constellation god's pupils shrank as he stared at the man with the devil mask. The constellation gods had been dealing with the immemorial heavenly demons for many years, so they had seen the heavenly demon king several times. However, the heavenly demon king rarely showed up, and even if he did, he never made a move. The immemorial gods still had no idea what the heavenly demon king was capable of. In the image, the heavenly demon king clenched his right hand, and a black ray of light shot out and entered the dead true demon's body. A strange scene appeared. The true demon, who was supposed to be dead, began to move. Then his broken body gradually recovered. Finally, he stood up and knelt in front of the Heaven Demon King. Heaven Devil King nodded and seemed to say something to True Demon. Suddenly, the devil mask turned around and looked at the screen. At this point, the scene came to an abrupt end, as if it had been interrupted by a certain force. This is the image that the constellation god of planet G sent to us before he died. It is also the only information that we, the primordial gods, have regarding the heavenly Devil King's methods. The constellation deity of the Horn constellation's gaze was grave as he continued, "The heavenly demon king is too terrifying. He can actually resurrect the dead true devil and create a new true devil by devouring his own kind." This was also why the number of true devils on the Sky Devil Army's side had never decreased even though they had killed many of them. It was all because of this Sky Devil King. The constellation god of the Jun constellation fell silent. The other constellation gods present were even more shocked by what they saw. The true devil, whose strength was no weaker than their constellation gods, could actually be resurrected by the heavenly demon king. Thinking of this possibility, their hearts were filled with despair. If they wanted to kill a true demon, they would have to pay a great price. Sometimes, they might even have to give up their lives. However, A true demon could be resurrected. Wouldn't that mean that their desperate battle had lost its meaning? Now, do you understand why I called back all the constellation gods and brought the elites of each star city to retreat to the core of the 18 cities of Sacred Star City? Killing the true devil is useless. It has no effect on the Sky Devil army because the true devil can be resurrected continuously. But our constellation gods can't be resurrected. If they die, they are really dead. The constellation god of the Horn constellation said in a low voice, "At this point, do you think the ordinary primordial gods are more important or the constellation gods?" This is the main reason why we decided to call back the constellation gods and the elites and retreat here. The constellation god of the Horn constellation clenched his fists tightly and said, "That is too cruel for the ordinary primordial gods. Even if you give up the Star City, you can bring them back." The constellation god of the Horn constellation shook his head and said, "Don't be silly. There are so many Star City. Do you know how many ordinary primordial gods there are? The Sacred Star City and the surrounding 18 cities can't accommodate so many primordial gods. What we can do is to bring back the real elites." I also feel very sad and guilty for those ordinary primordial gods who sacrificed their lives. But sometimes we have to make a choice, a relatively correct choice. The constellation god of the Horn constellation god was silent. Although he didn't want to admit it, he also understood that the constellation god of the Horn constellation god's words were unreasonable. But he didn't agree with their approach, because it was too selfish and too cruel. Constellation god of the Horn. Everything we do is for the future of the primordial gods. I have been looking for the Sky Devil's weakness. Now, killing the Sky Devil and the true devil is useless. There is only one way, and that is to kill the Sky Devil King. The constellation god of the Horn constellation god narrowed his eyes. The constellation god of the Horn constellation god was stunned. He immediately shook his head and said, "Kill the Sky Devil King? It is already so difficult for us to deal with the true devil. How can we kill the Sky Devil King? What a fool's dream." The constellation god of the Horn constellation god said indifferently, "There is a way. I heard that by gathering the power of the Chosen One, you can obtain the power to repel the Sky Devil. I think you know this better than me." Hearing this, the constellation god of the Horn constellation god's face completely changed. He looked at the constellation god of the Horn constellation god in disbelief. The matter of the Chosen One was a secret between him and the imperial astronomer. He had never told anyone. How did the constellation god of the Horn constellation god know? Constellation god of the Horn constellation. You knew about the Chosen One long ago. Why didn't you say it earlier? You and the imperial astronomer have already found the two Chosen One. Where are they now? You don't have to hide it. The constellation god of the Horn constellation god looked at the constellation god of the Horn constellation god, his eyes blazing as he asked in a low voice, "When I was seriously injured, did you secretly check my memory?" The constellation god of the Horn constellation god seemed to have thought of something, and his face suddenly became ugly. He remembered that when he was seriously injured and sent back to the Sacred Star City, his memory had been very chaotic. Sometimes he couldn't even tell who he was. It wasn't until later that he slowly recovered. At first he didn't care, but now that he thought about it, it was really suspicious. Now that the constellation god of the Horn constellation god suddenly talked about the Chosen One, everything suddenly became clear to him. Chapter 48:13. Chariot Mansion. All of this is for the greater good, for the future of our immemorial gods. I also understand that what we did to the imperial astronomer was too much, but it's all in the past. Now, we immemorial gods should unite as one. Jiao constellation god looked at Chariot constellation god with bright eyes and advised earnestly. Chariot Mansion. Jiao constellation is right. Now is not the time to hide. We immemorial gods only have this narrow place left, and you know the way to deal with the heavenly demons. Why are you still hiding it? Kuei constellation god also interjected to persuade. Kuei constellation god was a beautiful woman with long hair hanging down to the ground, but her hair was not black, but snow white. Jiao constellation and Kuei constellation are right. Now is the moment of life and death for our immemorial gods, chariot mansion. Since you know the way to save our immemorial gods, why don't you say it? If you don't say it, our immemorial gods will really be exterminated. Say it quickly. After hearing Jiao constellation god's words, many constellation gods looked at Chariot Mansion with hope in their eyes. They did not know that there was such a thing as the Chosen One, and they did not know that this so-called Chosen One could actually defeat the heavenly demons. Chariot constellation god's expression changed slightly, and she could not help but take a few steps back, coldly looking at Jiao constellation, Kuei constellation, and the other 4 leaders. Back then, the imperial astronomer and I had already told you in advance that the heavenly demons were an unstable factor, and they must be eradicated as soon as possible. But what did you do? You were still fighting among yourselves every day, fighting for a little bit of territory, plunging the people into misery and suffering, and finally giving the heavenly demons a chance to breathe, and they continued to grow stronger. Later, the heavenly demons became stronger and stronger, and they began to attack cities and plunder lands, killing countless immemorial gods, and even constellation gods began to die. What were you changing? You were still blindly retreating, and you valued your own life more than anyone else. If it were not for you 4 leaders repeatedly ordering the withdrawal of troops, causing you to miss several great opportunities, the immemorial gods would not be forced into this situation now. Chariot constellation god's eyes were cold, and she stared at Jiao constellation god and sneered, "Jiao constellation. You still have the face to say that for the future of the immemorial gods, for righteousness. What a joke. I think you guys are doing this for your own selfish reasons." After saying that, the constellation god of Zhen constellation turned around and left the palace. She didn't even look at the constellation god of Jiao and Kuei constellation god of Kuei. Bang! The star constellation deity of Dusu was so angry that she slapped the table with her palm. Her entire body was surrounded by a blazing, ruthless aura. She said coldly, "This is outrageous. This Zhen constellation is really going against the heaven. What kind of situation is it now? You actually dare to sulk with us? You're really courting death." Zhen Su did not care about the big picture and offended his superiors. He should be taken down. The constellation deity of the 7 constellations of the south, the constellation deity of the constellation Well, was the calmest. The constellation gods of Jiao and Kuei exchanged a glance, nodded, and flew out of the palace. Jing Su and Do Su also silently disappeared from the palace. On the round table, the other constellation gods all had different expressions. The moment the 4 paragons left, they understood that the fate of the chariot constellation was already sealed. Just as the constellation god of the Zhen constellation walked out of the hall, she took out a jade scroll as if she sensed something. The jade scroll emitted a resplendent golden light. Was this a message from Zhuowen and the others? The constellation god of the Zhen constellation revealed an excited expression. She had many communication jade scrolls on her, but only this special jade scroll was specially left for Zhuowen and Ma Yujie. Ever since she was injured and returned to the sacred Star City, there had been no news from Zhuowen and Ma Yujie, which made her very worried. Later, she got in touch with the imperial astronomer and learned that Zhuowen and Ma Yujie had been taken in by her. Only then did she feel slightly relieved. However, as the 4 paragons withdrew many constellation gods back to the sacred Star City, the other star cities fell one after another. Especially after she couldn't get in touch with the imperial astronomer, her heart sank to the bottom. Now, Yuan was able to get in touch with her again, which finally let her breathe a sigh of relief. When the constellation god of the chariot constellation sank her consciousness into the jade slip and began to read its contents, 4 silhouettes silently swept over and completely sealed off the constellation god of the chariot constellation from all directions. At this moment, the constellation god of the Zhen constellation sensed something and immediately withdrew her mind from the jade scroll. The 4 figures who had ambushed her were none other than the 4 paragons. Boom! In an instant, the 4 paragons attacked the constellation god of the Zhen constellation. Terrifying energy fluctuations surged out, forming an endless wave that soared into the sky. However, the energy wave soon dissipated like a ripple on the surface of water. It only lasted for a while before it gradually calmed down. Outside the sacred star city, demonic clouds roiled and demonic chi soared into the sky. Terrifying figures of heavenly demons rushed over from the distance and gathered in various directions outside the sacred star city, forming one massive heavenly demon army after another. Most terrifying of all was that each heavenly demon army had a terrifying true demon general hovering above them, each of them engulfing the sky in demonic chi. Zhuan mixed in with the heavenly demon army, her expression turning extremely grave. In this period of time, heavenly demon army after heavenly demon army had arrived one after another and gathered together, forming a heavenly demon army of several million. Moreover, these several million heavenly demon army were not ordinary people. They had been through countless battles and devoured to reach this place. Each and every one of them was the cream of the crop. What surprised Zhuan the most was that he saw a familiar face in one of the heavenly demon army that had arrived yesterday. This familiar face was Emo Shuji. At this moment, Emo Shuji had been reborn. He was no longer as thin and frail as before. Instead, he was as strong as an ox and exuded a terrifying demonic might. After not seeing him for 100 years, Emo Shuji had grown very quickly. He had not even been an ordinary heavenly demon back then, but now, he had become a superior heavenly demon. Now, he was one of the commanders of the heavenly demon army, his status only below that of a true demon. What surprised Zhuan even more was that many of Emo Shuji's subordinates were heavenly demons that Zhuan had once commanded. Once, when he was in Burning Heaven Star City, he was conferred the title of Centurion and commanded 100 heavenly demons. Most of those 100 heavenly demons were still present, and each of them had a terrifying aura. There were even some who had become superior heavenly demons, but they still followed Emo Shuji wholeheartedly and did not become a new commander. Zhuan could see that Emo Shuji's current status was very high. Many of the commanders of the upper heavenly devil lands looked at Emo Shuji with fear and respect. Even the true demon general of the heavenly demon army would often talk to Emo Shuji. From this, one could see that Emo Shuji's current status was not ordinary. Demonic text. Don't look around. That's Lord Emo Shuji. It's extremely impolite to look at him like that. Suddenly, Emo Tai walked over and patted Zhuan's shoulder, kindly reminding him. Chapter 48:14. Would this Emo Shujidaran dig out my eyes just because I keep looking at him? Zhuan asked with a faint smile. Emo Tai was startled and sat down beside Zhuan. He shook his head and said, "Of course not. Among the commanders, this Emo Shujidaran is famous for his good temper. Why would he dig out your eyes?" Zhuan asked with interest, "Can you tell me more about this Emo Shujidaran?" Hearing this, Emo Tai immediately became spirited and his eyes emitted some kind of light. He said, "Speaking of this Emo Shujidaran, his experience can be said to be magical." Zhuan looked at Emo Tai in amusement. The latter was especially excited when talking about Emo Shuji. It seemed that he respected Emo Shuji a lot, otherwise, he would not be so excited. This Emo Shujidaran, at first, was just a young sky demon that was not even comparable to ordinary sky demons. But he overestimated himself and wanted to join the sky demon army. Originally, he was rejected, but later he was chosen by a certain Baihu leader and was brought into the army. It was said that the Baihu leader also taught him a lot. In the Battle of the Heavenly Moat, the million sky demon army suffered heavy casualties. Even the Baihu leader of Emo Shuji's team died without a corpse. But Emo Shuji relied on some kind of battle formation and survived. And by continuously devouring powerful sky demons, their strength also became a lot stronger. Later, Emo Shuji joined the other sky demon army and led his team and brothers to fight continuously. The strange thing was, the other Baihu leaders often suffered heavy casualties, but only his team suffered few casualties. This Emo Shuji kept growing from a low-level sky demon to a mid-level sky demon, and then from a mid-level sky demon to a high-level sky demon. It took a very short time. What was even more inconceivable was that when Emo Shuji just became a commander, there were 7 commanders who did not accept it and brought their army to provoke Emo Shuji. Later, they were all killed by Mo Suji and his team, and were all devoured by them. Since then, Mo Suji's fame was completely established. Many commanders knew that Mo Suji was not to be trifled with, and no one dared to provoke him anymore. But what was strange was that such a powerful commander was very amiable towards those weak heavenly demons. He never bullied the weak. Furthermore, he was still filled with gratitude towards the centurion who had helped him back then. It was said that he still carried the centurion's memorial tablet with him. Mo Tai spoke frankly with assurance, his face flushed red. His admiration for Mo Suji could not be any greater. *CK. Lord Mo Suji is looking over. He seems to be looking at me. Heavens, this isn't an illusion, right? Did Lord Mo Suji notice me? Could it be that my hidden talent and strength attracted Lord Mo Suji's attention? All of a sudden, Mo Tai yelled, his eyes fixed on Mo Suji as he kept talking. Zhuan also lifted his head, meeting Mo Suji's sharp eyes as a faint smile appeared from the corners of his mouth. He saw the doubt, suspicion, and finally excitement in Mo Suji's eyes. He knew that Mo Suji had recognized him. They saw Mo Suji riding on a demonic horse with 100 elite cavalrymen behind him, stopping in front of Zhuan and Mo Tai. Lord Mo Suji above. This lowly Mo Tai greets Lord Mo Suji. Mo Tai hurriedly knelt on the ground, respectfully bowing to Mo Suji. His heart was filled with excitement. For the majority of heavenly demons, following a powerful commander was something they could only wish for. Mo Suji was known as the #1 person below true demons. His strength far surpassed most commanders, and the survival rate of his subordinates was extremely high. To Mo Tai, being able to serve under this commander was a blessing that he had cultivated for 3 lifetimes. Moen, what are you still standing there for? Why aren't you kneeling and greeting Lord Mo Suji? When Mo Tai saw that Zhuowen did not move, he became anxious and reminded Zhuowen in a stern voice. Unfortunately, Zhuowen still turned a deaf ear to him. He only raised his head, silently looked at Mo Suji, and said with a smile, "Suji, I really did not expect you to grow so fast. I really did not misjudge you at first." Mo Tai's heart skipped a beat. This Moen really did not know what was good for him. How could he call a commander by his name in front of him? And his attitude was too casual. He was really looking for death. Just as Mo Tai was panicking and continuously signaling Zhuowen with his eyes, he was shocked to see Mo Suji dismount from his horse. Not only Mo Suji, but the group of elites behind him also dismounted and knelt on one knee. "Lord Mo Zhua, you really made me look for you so hard." Mo Suji's eyes were filled with excitement as he respectfully said, "Greetings, Lord Mo Zhua." The elites behind Mo Suji all bowed to Zhuan, their eyes full of respect. Mo Tai was stunned as he looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. Was this world crazy? What kind of existence was Lord Mo Suji? He actually knelt in front of him. No, more accurately, he knelt in front of Zhuan. Mo Tai secretly looked at Zhuan, his heart fiercely trembling as he roared, "What is the origin of this Moen? And his original name is Mo Zhua? Get up." Zhuan nodded and helped Mo Suji up. The rest of the elites also stood up in unison, their eyes full of excitement. This group of elites were basically the 100 sky demons that followed Mo Suji. They knew that they were able to escape from the battle of the natural moat by luck because of the flexible battle tactics that Zhuowen taught them. If it were not for Professor Zhuowen's kindness, they would have died in the natural moat. "Oh, you get up too." Zhuowen looked at Mo Tai, who was still kneeling beside him, and said with a faint smile. Mo Tai turned a deaf ear and lowered his head. Mo Tai does not dare. Mo Tai has offended Lord before. Please do not take it to heart. At this moment, Mo Tai had already regarded Zhuowen as a big shot with an extraordinary status. Thinking of his previous casual attitude toward Zhuowen, he was faintly afraid and wanted to slap himself. "Don't worry. I won't take it to heart." After Zhuowen finished speaking, he no longer paid attention to Mo Tai. Instead, he looked at Mo Suji and said, "Suji, the final battle is about to begin. Do you mind if I become your subordinate?" Mo Suji quickly shook his head and said, "Lord Mo Zhua, I can't do that. You're my superior. How can I take you under my command? From now on, we will be at your disposal. Huan waved his hand and said solemnly, No need. My strength is not as good as yours. How can I be qualified to command you? It's decided, don't refuse. Chapter 48:15. Mo Su-ji hesitated for a moment, but seeing Zhuowen's resolute attitude, he could only nod and agree. Lord Mo Zhuo, if you become my subordinate, you won't need to listen to my commands. Instead, we might need to listen to your commands. Mo Su-ji looked hopefully at Zhuowen. Zhuowen thought for a moment, then nodded in agreement. He naturally knew what Mo Su-ji meant. Mo Su-ji wanted him to guide his subordinates in battle tactics. After the battle begins, I want to see your subordinates' battle tactics. Only then can I guide you. Let's talk about it after the battle. Zhuowen said indifferently. Speaking of which, after this battle, Huan was preparing to enter Sacred Star City. This promise might not be fulfilled. Moreover, Huan did not really want to fulfill this promise. After all, if he allowed Mo Su-ji's troops to become stronger, then the ancient gods would die even more. Therefore, he was unwilling to guide Mo Su-ji. However, he also understood that if he rejected now, it would arouse Mo Su-ji's suspicion. He could only agree verbally to stabilize Mo Su-ji. Right? Lord Mo Zhuo, which commander are you under? I need to greet your current commander. Mo Su-ji said apologetically. It's fine. My previous commander has already died on the battlefield, and the new commander is Mo Bai. Zhuowen said indifferently. So it's him. Mo Su-ji nodded and said to a general beside him, You're going to follow Mo Bai? Let the commander know that Lord Mo Zhuo has been invited back by me, Mo Su-ji. I hope he can give me some face. The general cupped his fists towards Mo Su-ji, then bowed toward Zhuowen before leaving. Zhuowen naturally recognized this general. This heavenly demon was also a heavenly demon soldier under his command in Burning Heaven Star City. He did not know his name, but he still remembered his face. Lord Mo Zhuo, please follow me. My troops are on the other side. Mo Su-ji enthusiastically led the way in front of Zhuowen while Zhuowen silently followed behind him. Soon, they arrived in front of a vast and empty land. There were densely packed tents here, and there were many heavenly devil soldiers in armor walking around the tents. There were also some heavenly devils sparring with each other on the empty land. When Mo Su-ji arrived in front of the tent, countless heavenly demons stood up and greeted him respectfully. Their eyes were filled with admiration and reverence. Mo Su-ji was the commander with the highest prestige and the highest survival rate among all the commanders. His battle record was also the best. Many of the heavenly devil army were proud to be under Mo Su-ji's command, and the soldiers under Mo Su-ji were even more proud of this. Naturally, they worshipped Mo Su-ji. You must be in charge of more than 150,000 soldiers. That's a lot more than regular Sky Fiend commanders. Zhuowen looked around and did a rough calculation. He discovered that Mo Su-ji's heavenly devil army was actually more than 150,000 soldiers, which surprised him. The positions of the heavenly devil army were very simple. The highest rank was a true demon general who could lead an army of 1,000,000 soldiers. Under his command, there would be more than 10 superior heavenly devil commanders. Every commander could lead around 100,000 soldiers, but it could not exceed 120,000. Otherwise, they would be dealt with according to military law. However, the number of soldiers under Mo Su-ji's command was obviously more than 120,000, and even more than 150,000. Mo Su-ji laughed bitterly, his face filled with helplessness. Instead, it was a graceful female heavenly devil beside him who chuckled and said, Lord Zhuo, you might not know this, but Lord Mo Su-ji's reputation is simply too good. Furthermore, the army he leads has suffered the least casualties among all the commanders. Adding on to the fact that he treats his subordinates well, many Sky Devil army soldiers are fighting to join his army. Furthermore, there are other heavenly devil army commanders who want to join our camp. Because of this, the true demon general punished countless heavenly devil army soldiers. However, the more he punished, the more heavenly devil army wanted to join our camp. In the end, the true demon general gave in and allowed us to have a maximum of 200,000 heavenly devil army soldiers. Now, our heavenly devil army is more than 190,000, and the quota is almost full. Hearing this, Zhuo nodded. He had a higher opinion of Mo Suji in his heart. It seemed like Mo Suji was indeed different from most of the heavenly devils. He was truly considerate of his subordinates. Otherwise, he would not be loved by so many heavenly devil army soldiers. Everyone, this is Lord Mo Zhuo. Once, when I was still weak, he took me in and allowed me to join the army. He even taught me powerful battle techniques and allowed me to survive. It can be said that without him, there would not be the Mo Suji of today. In the future, he will be a member of our camp. However, he has the highest authority and can order any one of us, including me. Now, let us pay our respects to Lord Mo Zhuo. Mo Suji's voice was filled with vigor. After he finished speaking, he knelt on one knee in front of Zhuan and kowtowed 3 times. The soldiers in the camp were all dumbfounded as they looked at each other. However, due to their absolute trust in Mo Suji, they all knelt down and kowtowed to Zhuan. The entire army of over 190,000 heavenly devils knelt down and kowtowed to Zhuan alone. How magnificent was this? Get up. Suji, actually, you don't need to muster so many people, Zhuan said with a complicated gaze. Mo Suji stood up and smiled. Lord Mo Zhuo, you are too polite. Although I am a heavenly devil, I also agree with the primordial God's saying of knowing how to repay kindness. If I do not repay kindness, wouldn't I be worse than a pig or a dog? Next, Mo Suji led Zhuan to his own tent and insisted that Zhuan stay in his tent. Zhuan didn't refuse and accepted Mo Suji's enthusiasm generously. After Mo Suji left the tent, Zhuan took out a golden jade slip. At this moment, the jade slip was emitting a brilliant golden light. Zhuan's eyes flickered. He knew that the constellation god had finally replied. Zhuan opened the jade slip. After reading the message, his brows slowly furrowed. This message was indeed sent by the constellation god. It was very clear in the jade slip that Zhuan was to go to one of the 18 core cities of the Sacred Star City and that someone would be sent to receive him. However, Zhuan felt that it was very strange because the tone of this message was different from the previous ones. It was as if the constellation god was a different person. Zhuan threw the jade slip to Ma Yujie in the outside world. However, the latter did not notice anything different and even joked that Zhuan was overthinking things. Perhaps I really am overthinking things. Zhuan's eyes flickered. He slowly put away the jade slip and sat down cross-legged. His mind sank into the outside world as he continued to comprehend the virtual sphere. There was still some time before the decisive battle, but he could already feel that he was not far from breaking through to the primordial god realm. Chapter 48:16. Time gradually passed. As the heavenly demon army continued to gather, the demonic clouds in the sky became thicker and thicker, almost covering the entire sky. The vast land was completely covered in shadows. In the farthest part of the boundless wasteland, the embryonic form of a city gradually appeared in the eyes of the heavenly demon army. The vague shadows of the cities were the Divine Star City and the 18 core divine cities around it. On the side of Sacred Star City, there were countless tents, all of which were temporary tents for the heavenly demon army. In Mo Shuji's tent, Zhuan slowly opened his eyes, his scarlet eyes gradually being replaced by divine light. Looks like I'm about to break through. I must enter the great world to break through. Zhuan's eyes were calm. He did not dare to break through here. Once his true aura leaked out, it would immediately attract the attention of countless heavenly demons. And he was now in the heavenly demon army's main camp. If he was exposed, he would not be able to escape and would definitely die. Brother Ma, help me disguise. Zhuan summoned Ma Yujie out of the great world. Hey, Brother Zhuo, the difference in our sizes is too big. I can't disguise you. Ma Yujie advised earnestly, but he was extremely nervous. Brother Ma, don't worry. My disguise technique is extremely brilliant. There won't be any flaws. Moreover, I will open up the demon realm and cover you with demon shadow primordial demon chi. You can disguise me. Believe in yourself. With that, Yuan did not care about Ma Yujia's refusal and opened up the demon realm. Primordial demon chi gushed out and enveloped Ma Yujia. After doing all this, Yuan immediately entered the great world. Ma Yujia subconsciously wanted to enter the great world, but he was shocked to find that the great world was completely closed and he could not enter at all. Yuan, you're really ruthless. Ma Yujia's expression was unsightly. He kept cursing Zhuo Wen's 18 generations of ancestors. Suddenly, several footsteps came from outside the tent, scaring Ma Yujia so much that he almost jumped up. Ma Yujia knew that he had to act now. If he didn't, he would die. He recalled Zhuo Wen's heavenly demon appearance. His face shape and body shape began to change. Soon, he turned into the heavenly demon appearance that Zhuo had transformed into. And because Yuan had given him a portion of the control of the devil domain, he could also control the opening and closing of the devil domain, releasing the devil chi inside to conceal his own aura. When Ma Yujia finished his transformation, the sound of footsteps from outside the tent entered the tent. Mo Suji walked in with his 2 deputies and knelt on one knee in front of the screen, saying in a low voice, "Lord Mo Jua." The true demon great general and the others began to gather their troops. "Please come with us as well." Ma Yujia naturally recognized Mo Shuji's voice. He coughed dryly and pretended to be Zhun. I got it. You guys go out first. I'll be there soon." Hearing this, Mo Suji frowned. He felt that Mo Zhuo was a little strange today. Although the latter's voice and aura were the same, it gave him a different feeling. "All right. Then I'll wait outside the tent for you, Lord Ojua." Mo Suji nodded and left swiftly with his 2 deputies. Seeing that Mo Suji had left, Ma Yujia let out a sigh of relief. After completely adapting to the primordial devil chi, he stepped out of the tent. The moment he stepped out, Mo Suji immediately came up to him. Ma Yujia could clearly see that Mo Suji was carefully sizing him up. It was as if he was judging him. But soon, Mo Suji retracted his gaze and lowered his eyes with a smile. "Lord Mo Zhua, please follow me." Ma Yujia did not say a word and only followed behind silently. Looking at the densely packed heavenly demon army, Ma Yujia's heart was in a panic. But on the surface, he remained calm. This was the first time he was in the midst of so many heavenly demons. The moment his identity was exposed, he would probably be torn to shreds by these heavenly demons. After passing through the heavenly demon army, Ma Yujia found that he had arrived at a high platform. The 2 deputies behind Mo Suji immediately stopped in front of the platform and stood at the front of the team, their faces full of meticulousness. Mo Suji directly stepped onto the platform and walked to the top. Ma Yujia also stopped in front of the platform, not knowing whether to advance or retreat. It was extremely awkward. "Lord Mo Zhua, you should come up as well." Mo Suji glanced at Ma Yujia and smiled as he gestured for him to come up. Ma Yujia nodded and still did not say a word. He walked up the platform and stood side by side with Mo Suji, looking down at the 190,000-strong heavenly demon army. At the same time, Ma Yujia also noticed that there were many platforms lined up on the left and right. On each platform stood a tall and sturdy heavenly demon with a terrifying aura. He knew that these were the heavenly demon commanders that led the 100,000-strong heavenly demon army. Suddenly, a terrifying demonic aura descended like a mountain, like an abyss, and like the sea, causing Ma Yujia's heart to tremble. Ma Yujia slowly turned around and saw 2 stalwart figures floating in the air. These 2 figures were extremely sturdy, far taller than any other heavenly demon. The demonic aura they emitted filled Ma Yujia's heart with fear. "It's the true demons." Ma Yujia's eyes twitched. He immediately realized that these 2 stalwart figures should be the true demon great generals. These were terrifying great demons that were comparable to the constellation gods. "Greetings, Mo Ju Shen and Mo Killing God, the 2 true demon great generals." Mo Suji placed his right hand on his left chest and knelt down on one knee as he shouted. The other commanders followed suit and knelt down on one knee as they shouted in unison. Ma Yujie reacted quickly and imitated Mo Suji, lowering his head and not daring to look at the two true demon great generals. The million-strong heavenly demon army also shouted in unison. Their voices shook the heavens and earth, resounding through the clouds. Mo Jushen was dressed in a purple robe. His face looked like a human, but his skin was green. His ears and nose were very sharp, and he revealed two sharp teeth. He looked down at the heavenly demon army and said indifferently, "Everyone! Sacred Star City is just around the corner. Victory is just around the corner. I hope that everyone can give it their all in the next battle and take down Sacred Star City. As long as we take down the earthly Star City, the entire ancient star system will belong to us, the primordial heavenly demons. We can do whatever we want. Nothing will be able to restrain us anymore. This time, our million-strong army is responsible for the 3 cities in the east. If we can take down these 3 cities, we will have done a great service. Whatever you want, we can give it to you. As long as you can take down these 3 cities. Do you understand what I'm saying?" "Understood." Countless heavenly demon army shouted in unison. It was deafening. Mo Jushen nodded. He was very satisfied with the performance of the heavenly demon army. Suddenly, his gaze fell on Ma Yujie, and he frowned slightly. Chapter 48:17. Mo Suji. Who is he? Why is he standing on the commander's platform? Mo Jushen glanced at Ma Yujie, then looked at Mo Suji beside Ma Yujie. "Reporting to my lord. This is my benefactor. When I first joined the army, I was very weak and relied on him to take care of me. Now that I have met my benefactor again, I will let him enjoy the same treatment as me in order to repay my kindness." Mo Suji lowered his head and explained meticulously. "I see, but the military law cannot be broken. Since he is not a commander, let him go. As for the rest, it's up to you." Mojus God said calmly. Mo Suji was now the strongest commander under his command, his most capable general. He was much more lenient with Mo Suji compared to the other commanders. Mo Suji stubbornly raised his head and said, "Lord Mojus God. In my eyes, kindness is more important than anything else. Even if I have to go down, I will not let my benefactor go down. If only one person can stand on the platform, then I will go down myself." Mojus God raised his eyebrows. He did not expect Mo Suji to value kindness so much. In his eyes, such kindness was useless. In his eyes, there were only useful and useless. He would make good use of the useful heavenly demons. As for the useless heavenly demons, even if they had done him a favor, he would mercilessly kick them away. "Mo Suji, you are not a pedantic person, right? You being able to reach where you are today has nothing to do with anyone else. It is all the result of your own hard work. You do not need to value kindness so much. Let him go down." Mojus God said calmly. Mo Suji shook his head, his eyes filled with determination. Ma Yujie, on the other hand, was so scared that his heart was pounding. What was wrong with Mo Suji? Wasn't it just going down? He could have just gone down obediently. What was the point of competing with General Genemo? "Mo Suji, are you going to disobey my orders?" Mojus God squinted his eyes, his body emitting a dangerous aura that suppressed Mo Suji's body. At this moment, more than 190,000 celestial soldiers behind Mo Suji stood up and looked coldly at Mo Jushen. "Kneel." Mo Suji suddenly shouted. The eyes of the heavenly demon army behind him flickered, and only then did they kneel again. "Lord Mo Jushen, I'm not disobeying your orders. It's my request." Mo Suji raised his head and looked at Mo Jushen with a sincere gaze. "Mo Jushen, since when did you become so concerned about trifles? Didn't you despise military law the most in the past? Why do you value military law so much now?" The murderous devil, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke. "I'm just testing this guy. I have to say, he's very similar to me back then." Mo Jushen suddenly laughed heartily. The dangerous and terrifying aura on his body suddenly disappeared. "Mo Shuji, You're very good. Both I and the devil-killing god think highly of you. If you don't die in this battle, you'll have a chance to become a true demon great general. Mo Jushin said with a smile. Mo Su-ji heaved a sigh of relief and cupped his fists at Mo Jushin and Mo Sha-shin. Thank you for your kind words. Su-ji is still far from being comparable to the two of you. I hope that the two of you can guide Su-ji. You're too humble. Mo Jushin waved his hand, then looked around and said loudly, let's go to the 3 eastern cities. Everyone, it's said that our king will also come this time. He will be secretly observing you. If anyone performs well, they will be chosen by our king and reach the heavens in a single step. I hope you can grasp this opportunity well. The moment he said that, the countless heavenly demon army became restless, each of them revealing a look of excitement. The heavenly demon king was the idol of countless heavenly demons because it was the heavenly demon king who led the heavenly demon clan to their current achievements. Without the heavenly demon king, there would be no heavenly demon clan today. No heavenly demon clan member could refuse the chance to be chosen by the heavenly demon king. Perform well. Let's go. Mo Jushin did not speak anymore. He marched side by side with the murderous devil towards the east. Countless heavenly demon army followed closely behind. Lord Mo Jua, when we attack the city, follow me closely. In the army, Mo Su-ji rode on a tall demonic horse and looked at Ma Yujie beside him. But Ma Yujie replied absent-mindedly. Right now, his mind was filled with thoughts of how to find an opportunity to send his location to the constellation god. Previously, the constellation god had sent a message to arrange the location of his rescue. He remembered that the constellation god had asked him to go to the South Dragon Star City and wait for the constellation god's people to receive him. Originally, he had planned to go to the South Dragon Star City. However, how could he have known that his plan could not keep up with the changes? The heavenly demon army he was in was actually going to attack the 3 star cities in the east. Right now, he was in the heavenly demon army with so many pairs of eyes watching him. If he took out his communication jade slip, wouldn't he be courting death? Moreover, Ma Yujie had also tried to contact Zhuoan, but he found that there was no response from Zhuoan. It was obvious that the latter was in the midst of a breakthrough. Looks like I can only wait for the battle to start and see if I have a chance to send a message to the constellation god. Ma Yujie sighed softly in his heart. When he raised his head, he saw Mo Su-ji staring at him. Ma Yujie's heart skipped a beat. Su-ji, what's wrong? Ma Yujie forced himself to remain calm and asked. Mo Su-ji sized up Ma Yujie from head to toe, then shook his head and said, nothing. I just feel that Lord Mo Jua is acting strangely today. Is there something on your mind? Ma Yujie smiled embarrassedly and said, there's nothing on my mind. It's probably because the decisive battle is imminent, so I can't help but feel a little nervous. Hearing this, Mo Su-ji nodded, the doubts in his heart disappearing. This decisive battle was too crucial, and it was bound to be an earth-shattering battle. Not to mention Mo Jua, even Mo Su-ji himself was feeling a little nervous. The heavenly demon army advanced quickly, and in about half a day, they finally arrived in front of the 3 star cities in the east. Ma Yujie raised his head and looked into the distance, only to see 3 incomparably huge star cities. These 3 star cities weren't close to each other, but from afar, they seemed to be tightly attached to each other, forming the word mountain. Between the 3 star cities, countless brilliant array ripples flowed like waves, linking the 3 star cities together. At this moment, atop the lofty walls of the 3 star cities, immemorial god army troops clad in dazzling armor were waiting for their arrival, each of them exuding an imposing aura. Mo Yongqiang, Mo Qianyong, Mo Lu, you 3 lead the 3 armies to attack the star city on the left. Mo Taiying, Mo Guangyuan, Mo Shangyun, you 3 lead the other 3 armies to attack the star city on the right. Mo Su-ji, Mo Wuji, Mo Jinying, and Mo Liuan, you 3 lead the 4 armies to attack the central star city. Mo Jushin waved his right hand, and the million heavenly demon army immediately split into 3 groups, charging towards the 3 star cities. Chapter 48:18. Kill! 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 In an instant, battle cries filled the sky. Countless heavenly demon army began to madly charge towards the 3-star cities. Billowing demonic chi soared into the sky, forming terrifying demonic clouds that constantly shrouded the 3-star cities. In an instant, the world fell into darkness. The earth turned murky and pitch black. The heavenly demonic army on the left was the first to reach the star city on the left. Then, they slammed into the star city's walls and exploded with terrifying energy. The surface of the star city lit up with a resplendent brilliance, and countless formation runes circulated rapidly. The sky demon army that was charging at the front was immediately blasted away by the formation runes. Many of them were crushed on the spot, and not even their corpses remained. Then, the same thing happened to the star city in the middle and the star city on the right. The heavenly demonic army charged over crazily, but they were all blasted away by the divine formation on the star city's surface. Many of them even died on the spot. These primordial gods are all cowards. When they fight, they like to use this kind of divine formation to fight the enemy while they hide in the star city. The murderous demon snorted coldly as he took a step forward. His entire body surged with strange blood-red demonic energy. In an instant, the entire world was filled with the pungent smell of blood. Accompanying the smell of blood was a terrifying killing power. The murderous demon stepped forward step by step toward the star city on the left. His aura grew stronger as his terrifying blood chi soared into the sky. When the murderous demon got close to the star city on the left, countless drops of blood covered his body, forming a ferocious and powerful blood-red armor. The murderous demon roared as he threw out a punch. This punch was too terrifying. Heaven and earth shook as his murderous aura soared into the sky. It was as if he could kill everything in the world. The punch landed on the star city's surface. Immediately, the divine formation surrounding the star city on the left could not withstand the murderous demon's terrifying punch and collapsed. That frightening slaughter energy was like a hot knife through butter as it smashed the enormous city walls of the star city into pieces. Kill them all. The murderous demon ordered the countless excited heavenly demonic army and rushed toward the star city in the middle. He planned to break the divine formations of the 3-star cities one by one with brute force. Then, he would let the million sky demon army push forward and slaughter the 3-star cities. In the star city on the left, countless primordial divine army soldiers also charged towards the sky demon army with star weapons in hand. In the blink of an eye, the primordial gods and the heavenly demon army clashed fiercely. Both sides fought fiercely. Divine energy and demonic energy intertwined, and divine blood and demonic blood intertwined. Everything was so cruel and bloody. Demon-killing god. Stop it. A deafening roar came from the depths of Star City. A figure covered in dazzling starlight swept out and blocked the path of the murderous devil. Kill! The murderous demon snorted coldly and threw out another punch. His blood chi was like a dragon, and his killing intent was like the sky. This figure, whose entire body was flickering with resplendent starlight, was not afraid at all. He also threw out a punch. When the two fists collided, terrifying energy ripples erupted. Then, the two of them retreated at the same time, and huge cracks appeared in the void. The murderous demon steadied himself and looked at his opponent with his scarlet eyes. The constellation god in front of him was a man with 2 horns on his head. Constellation god of the Ox constellation? The murderous demon narrowed his eyes and looked coldly at the constellation god with 2 horns on his head. Murderous demon! Back then, you died at my hands, but I didn't expect you to come back to life. You primordial heavenly demons are really disgusting. You're like flies. You can regenerate after I kill you. The constellation god of the Ox constellation said coldly. The murderous demon sneered. You primordial gods are jealous of us primordial heavenly demons, aren't you? Our great king created us, gave us life, and gave us immortality. This is a privilege that you primordial gods do not have. You can't kill me, but I can kill you. The constellation god of the Ox constellation said coldly. Since I can kill you once, I can kill you a second time. This time, I will blast you until not even your bones are left. I want to see if the heavenly demon king can resurrect you." As he spoke, the constellation god of the Ox constellation strode towards the murderous demon. Countless stars shot into the sky. If one looked closely, one would see stars appear behind the constellation god of the Ox constellation god. These stars were arranged in a strange manner, and from afar, they looked like a giant ox. "Murderous demon, go and destroy the divine arrays of the other 2 star cities." The murderous demon said to the nearby murderous demon and rushed towards the constellation god of the Ox constellation god. Boom, boom, boom. The two instantly engaged in a fierce battle. Terrifying energy constantly exploded in the void. Looking from afar, it was exceptionally bright and terrifying. Murderous demon nodded. He took a step forward and rushed towards the middle star city. His body emitted a terrifying demonic aura. However, just as Mojus deity was about to reach the central star city, another dazzling figure appeared in front of him and blocked his path. Female constellation god. Murderous demon looked coldly at the beautiful woman in front of him and said coldly, "Murderous demon, if you want to fight, then fight with me. Don't you think it's unbecoming of you to destroy the divine arrays?" The female constellation god's voice was frivolous, but her beautiful eyes were filled with coldness and killing intent. "Then I'll kill you first, then destroy the divine arrays of the other star cities. Today, the primordial gods will be defeated without a doubt. You are destined to become the slaves of the primordial heavenly demons. You will never be free." Murderous demon snorted coldly. Endless demonic energy surged out and transformed into countless demonic soldiers. They madly rushed towards the female constellation god's vital points. The female constellation god's beautiful eyes grew colder. She waved her sleeves and countless ice crystals condensed in the void, blocking all the demonic soldiers. At the same time, more ice crystals rained down on murderous demon. The latter used his movement technique to dodge the attacks. At the same time, he continued to condense more demonic soldiers to fight the female constellation god. Both of them fought from afar. Thus, one could see the countless demonic soldiers and ice crystals colliding in the void. The terrifying sound of metal clashing rang out continuously. It was a terrifying sight to behold. While the 2 constellation gods and the 2 true demons were fighting, the battle between the heavenly demon army and the primordial gods was getting more and more intense. Heavenly demons and primordial gods were constantly dying. Of course, the most intense battle was taking place in the left star city. Because the divine arrays in the middle and right star city were still intact, many primordial gods coldly watched as the heavenly demon army madly attacked the city, flew backwards, and died. The cycle repeated itself. While the 2 sides were fighting, Mayuja quietly went to a secluded area and took out the golden jade slip. Chapter 48:19. Due to unknown reasons, search dogs are unable to search for this website today. Dear readers, please remember this website's domain name and find your way home. After Ma Yujie quietly recorded his location and information into the jade slip with his mind, he quickly put the jade slip away. "Lord Mo Joie, what are you doing?" Suddenly, a loud shout rang out, causing Ma Yujie to shiver in fear. He turned around and saw Mo Suji leading the elite heavenly demon army from the chaotic heavenly demon army, riding over on demonic horses. "Nothing much. It's just that this is the first time I've seen such a terrifying battlefield, so I can't help but feel a little nervous." Ma Yujie casually found an excuse. Mo Suji looked deeply at Ma Yujie and said, "Lord Mo Joie, follow me. The divine arrays of the immemorial gods are very powerful, and it won't be easy to break through them in a short period of time. Don't follow the heavenly demon army and charge ahead. It'll be easy for you to die there. Follow me closely." Ma Yujie naturally couldn't ask for more. He had already sent the message and only needed to wait for the constellation god to send someone to pick him up. Now, he had to ensure that he survived this battle, and following Mo Suji was naturally the best choice. Ma Yujie followed Mo Suji for the rest of the battle. Mo Suji was, after all, the commander of a region. He naturally didn't need to charge and break through the enemy lines. He only needed to command the army from the rear. Therefore, Ma Yujie was very safe by following Mo Suji. As time passed, the battle became more and more intense. When the divine arrays of the other two star cities gradually dimmed, the immemorial gods finally couldn't hold back and rushed down to fight the heavenly demon army. The heavenly demon army had already been worn down by the divine arrays. Therefore, when the immemorial gods rushed over, the heavenly demon army immediately fell into a disadvantage. However, Mo Suji's command was good. He commanded his troops on the battlefield to form various battle formations. Soon, the heavenly demon army recovered from the disadvantage and became braver as they fought, gradually gaining the upper hand. Ma Yujie was rather anxious. It had been so long, why hadn't the constellation gods' people arrived? Furthermore, there was no reply. Soon, the sky darkened. Both the primordial gods and heavenly demons had suffered casualties, especially on the heavenly demon army's side. The battle between the bull constellation god and the female constellation god and the two true devils was also very intense. There was no clear victor, and in the end, both sides retreated. Ma Yujie felt very uncomfortable. He looked at the silhouettes of the three star cities in the distance. Although he wanted to rush into the star cities, he knew that if he did so, he would be treated as an enemy by the ancient gods and destroyed. If he wanted to enter the star city, he would need someone to receive him. After returning to the barracks, Ma Yujie finally received news of the golden encounter that he had been waiting for. The contents of the jade slip were very simple. The celestial demon army had launched an all-out attack, and the assault was too fierce. The constellation god of the Zhen constellation, the other constellation gods, and even the majority of the primordial gods were busy fighting the enemy. At present, they did not have the time to help Ma Yujie. The constellation god of the Zhen constellation told Ma Yujie and the others to preserve their lives as much as possible. They would find an opportunity to send someone to receive them, and they also described the characteristics of the person who would receive them. Ma Yujie put away the jade slip with ease. He knew that he only needed to wait silently for the person who would receive him to appear. In the next 10 days, the primordial gods and heavenly demon army fought without rest. The bitter battle caused the deaths of countless primordial gods and heavenly demons. Ma Yujie followed beside Mo Shuji, silently waiting for the person who would receive him to appear. During this time, Ma Yujie also tried to contact Chuan, but he did not receive any response. This puzzled Ma Yujie. Logically speaking, it would take at most half a day to break through to the primordial god realm. Now that 10 days had passed, could it be that he still hadn't succeeded? Or could it be that Jun had encountered a difficult problem that prevented him from leaving? On the 11th day, the heavenly demon army and the primordial gods clashed again, and the battle between the two armies was even more bitter. The constellation god of the Ox constellation and the female constellation god of the constellation god attacked as usual, desperately fighting the demonic killing god and demonic art god. Resplendent divine power and demonic energy sprayed out, interweaving into resplendent splendor in the void. Suddenly, Ma Yujie's eyes lit up. He saw a figure in front of the walls of the central star city. This figure was an ordinary gray-robed old man, but his eyes were very bright and resplendent, as if they contained starlight within them. The moment he saw this gray-robed old man, he recognized him. Wasn't this gray-robed old man the constellation god of the Horn constellation of the 7 constellations of the East? The constellation god of the Horn constellation was one of the 4 constellations of the East, and he was also the strongest of the 4. He was the most respected person among the primordial gods. In the past, before Ma Yujie had fallen in the chaotic starry sky, he had seen the constellation god of the Horn constellation from afar, which was why he could recognize him at a glance. Lord Zhen constellation once said that Lord Horn constellation would personally come to receive me, but he was unable to leave before. Now that he's here, I should go tell him my identity. Ma Yujie was rather excited. Taking advantage of the fact that Mo Shuji's attention was focused on the command of the heavenly demon army, he took a step forward and rushed towards the central star city. Lord Mo Zhua, what are you doing? When Emo Shuji came back to his senses, he realized that Ma Yujie had already left. His expression changed greatly as he shouted at Ma Yujie's back. Unfortunately, Ma Yujie turned a deaf ear to his words and continued to charge towards the front line without uttering a single word. Ma Yujie's strength was already extraordinary. Although he wasn't a constellation god, he was already a high-grade primordial god. If he didn't want to, there were very few who could injure him on the battlefield. As he approached the central star city, Ma Yujie gradually closed the demonic domain, and the billowing primordial demonic chi gradually dissipated, revealing his true appearance. Many of the primordial god army soldiers were prepared to attack Ma Yujie when they saw him, but when they saw Ma Yujie's true appearance, they were all stunned. As for the gray-robed elder standing in the central star city, his gaze fell on Ma Yujie, and a sharp light flashed in the depths of his eyes. "I've finally found you." The constellation god of the Horn constellation god smiled and waved his sleeve. Surging divine power swept out, and the surrounding heavenly demon army that wanted to encircle Ma Yujie exploded into nothingness. As for Ma Yujie, he only felt a gentle force supporting his body, ignoring the divine array in front of the city walls, and bringing him up to the top of the central star city's walls. Lord Emojwu, when Emo Shuji saw this, it was as if he had been struck by lightning. He was so stunned that he even forgot to command the heavenly demon army. He never imagined that the Emojwu who had taught him and saved him was actually an primordial god. Chapter 48:20. Due to unknown reasons, search dogs are unable to search for this site today. Dear readers, please remember this site's domain name and find your way home. Lord Commander, are you all right? A deputy general beside Emo Shuji saw the uneasy look on Emo Shuji's face and anxiously reminded him. He's not Lord Emojwu. He's an imposter. Damn it, he actually dared to impersonate Lord Emojwu. I'll kill him with my own hands. Emo Shuji regained his senses, his eyes filled with violent killing intent as he stared at the fat Ma Yujie on the wall of Star City. He simply could not accept the fact that Emojwu was an archaic god in disguise. He subconsciously believed that this archaic god was impersonating Emojwu. The deputy general opened his mouth but did not say anything. He knew that anything he said would only agitate Emo Shuji, so he might as well not say anything. Despicable archaic god, you actually dared to deceive me, and you even used Lord Emojwu to deceive me. I'll never forgive you. Emo Shuji's eyes were red and filled with rage. He actually gave up on commanding the heavenly demon army and charged towards the archaic god army, starting a frenzied slaughter. On the wall of Star City, Horn constellation god looked at the fat man in front of him and asked with a smile, "Jinsu already told me, you should be Ma Yujie, right? He kept praising you in front of us, saying that you're the chosen one, destined to save us archaic gods from the abyss of suffering in the future." Ma Yujie scratched his head in embarrassment and said, "Lord Horn Constellation, Lord Jinsu is overpraising me. Right, where's Lord Jinsu now?" Horn Constellation god smiled. He's fighting in Star City in the west. The situation is tense now, so he won't be able to rush over for a while. Ma Yujie nodded and said with a serious expression, "Lord Horn Constellation, there's something I don't understand. I wonder if Lord can clear it up for me?" Horn Constellation god smiled. "What is it? Go ahead and say it." "I heard that after Heaven's moat was breached, you 4 paragons decided to withdraw the constellation gods and elite experts along the way, abandoning Sacred Star City and the surrounding 18 cities. I want to ask you, why did you do that? Do you know how painful the consequences of doing so are? Many ordinary primordial gods who didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken were killed by the heavenly demon army, and even more primordial gods were captured as miserable slaves." The more Ma Yujie spoke, the more excited he became. His fists involuntarily clenched tightly. During this period of time, although he had been hiding in Zhuowen's great world, he had seen everything that had happened in the outside world clearly. He saw many primordial gods die under the sky-fiend butcher's blade. He also saw the numb eyes of many primordial gods when they were turned into slaves. It could be said that all along the way here, What he'd seen was true hell. There was no order, no rules, only slaughter and abuse. It was extremely undisguised. And the reason for all of this was because of the constellation god's policy of non-resistance. She was willing to expose countless primordial gods to the fangs of the heavenly demons, resulting in countless tragedies. The constellation god of the Horn constellation listened quietly, still smiling, but a hint of coldness gradually appeared in the depths of his eyes. Sigh. I am also very ashamed of this matter. The reason why I adopted this policy was due to many factors. Wait for me to end this battle. I will bring you to Sacred Star City and tell you the truth. The constellation god of the Horn constellation looked ashamed as he bowed deeply to Ma Yujie, a sincere look in his eyes. Lord Constellation God of the Horn, I can't accept this. Quickly get up. Ma Yujie hurriedly helped the constellation god up, his heart softening. Could it be that there was really some hidden secret? The constellation god of the Horn constellation god still bowed solemnly and said, Ma Yujie, I agree with your words, so you should accept this bow. Next, wait for me for a moment. With that, the constellation god of the Horn constellation god stepped into the air, and endless starlight soared into the sky. Instantly, the countless demonic clouds in the sky scattered, and then one star after another appeared in the depths of the sky. Countless stars hung in the sky, sparkling and emitting an eternal radiance. But soon, countless heavenly demons discovered that the starlight in the sky was becoming more and more intense, and it was getting closer and closer. They finally realized that it was not stars, but astral soldiers emitting resplendent starlight. Bang, bang, bang. Countless astral soldiers descended from the sky and instantly blasted into the heavenly demon army. Shrill screams resounded as nearly a third of the heavenly demon army was pierced through, dying on the spot. Many of the heavenly demon army dodged in panic, but they also suffered significant injuries. Mo Shuji was originally madly slaughtering the primordial gods when an ominous feeling arose in his heart, and his eyelids twitched wildly. Without even thinking, he raised his black spear with both hands and placed it above him. Bang! A dazzling saber slashed down heavily, colliding heavily with his black spear. Countless sparks flew in all directions. Mo Shuji grunted as he raised his spear with both hands and retreated in a sorry state. His feet plowed 2 deep marks in the ground. Kacha! Suddenly, Mo Shuji was shocked to discover that the black spear in his hand had shattered, and that resplendent saber landed heavily on his chest. Fortunately, he reacted quickly enough and retreated in time. However, a large wound still appeared on his chest, and black blood gushed out, making him look extremely miserable. Damn it. Mo Shuji knelt on one knee, clutching the wound on his chest. Demonic energy surged throughout his body as he forcefully healed his injuries. However, the constellation god of the Horn constellation god's divine energy was too terrifying. His wounds continued to worsen and rapidly split open. A few moments later, a bloody hole several feet wide appeared on Mo Shuji's chest, and his bones and organs could be seen clearly. An immemorial divine general dashed over and slashed with his long sword, aiming for Mo Shuji's head. Mo Shuji sent out a palm, sending the general flying while he spat out a mouthful of blood. More and more primordial god generals rushed over and began to launch fierce attacks on Mo Shuji. Mo Shuji's breathing was ragged as he continuously blocked the attacks of these primordial god generals, but his injuries were getting worse and worse. He was also gradually unable to suppress the constellation god's divine energy. Finally, Mo Shuji could no longer endure the power and his entire body exploded. A beam of sword light instantly cut off Mo Shuji's head, sending it flying and rolling on the ground. Lord Ayudatsu. Mo Shuji's head continued to roll on the ground, his gaze locked onto Ma Yujie's figure on the city wall. His weak and feeble voice could be heard before completely disappearing. In the end, Mo Shuji closed his eyes, and only darkness remained before his eyes. Chapter 48:21. Bang, bang, bang. On the battlefield, countless starlight flashed like a harvester, destroying the immemorial heavenly demons. The horned constellation god stepped out and hovered in the void with his hands behind his back. He looked down at the countless heavenly demons with indifference and ruthlessness. Soldiers, these heavenly demons are cruel and bloodthirsty. Not only did they invade our homeland, they even enslaved our brethren and trampled on our dignity. Today is the day we avenge our brethren. The horned constellation god's cold voice rang out. He waved his sleeve and countless starlights swept out like a storm, reaping the lives of countless heavenly demons. Kill all the heavenly demons. The horned constellation god said with murderous intent. Kill. Countless immemorial gods were inspired and rushed out madly, launching a destructive attack on the remaining immemorial heavenly demons. Originally, most of the Sky Devil army had been defeated by the constellation god of the Horn constellation, and the rest were basically defeated soldiers. Now that the primordial god had rushed over, it was almost effortless for him to defeat the Sky Devil army. Horned constellation. You bastard, as a constellation god, how could you attack ordinary soldiers? Don't you feel ashamed? Murderous Demon and the Ox constellation god were engaged in a fierce battle. When he saw the horned constellation god completely destroying the heavenly demon army, his eyes turned red and he roared in anger. Mantra god was also furious. Seeing the million heavenly demon army being massacred by the horned constellation god and being defeated again and again made him feel very sullen. The horned constellation god's gaze was calm as he said, "Murderous demon, Mantra god. Your heavenly demon army is despicable and shameless. And you even invaded the territory of the immemorial gods. I killed them to avenge my brethren. How is it shameful? Today I will kill the two of you. You two are the most despicable. You led the heavenly demon army to invade the immemorial gods. Do you really think that we immemorial gods are weak?" With that, the horned constellation god stomped his foot and turned into a ray of light, charging towards the murderous demon. The murderous devil's expression changed slightly. He was locked in battle with the bull constellation god and was even at a slight disadvantage. Now that the horn constellation god had intervened, he was no match for him. One had to know that the horn constellation god was one of the four paragons. His strength was many times stronger than the bull constellation god. In a one-on-one fight, he was far from being a match for the constellation god. Now that the constellation god was teaming up with the constellation god, it was even more impossible for him to be a match. Thinking of this, the demonic killing god let out a shrill cry, and his entire body erupted with a blazing red light. 2 bloody holes appeared on his back, and 2 huge blood-red wings drilled out. Run! The demonic killing god's eyes turned scarlet as it spread its wings and quickly fled into the distance. I've been guarding against you for a long time. You want to escape? No way. The constellation god of the bull constellation snorted coldly and formed a seal with both hands. Instantly, countless stars swept out from the void behind him and blocked the murderous demon. Countless stars flickered with resplendent starlight. They were arranged in a strange way, forming a giant bull that seemed to reach the heavens and the earth. This huge bull had a pair of horns that shone with starlight and an armor that was as hard as steel. Its eyes were even brighter than the stars. The huge bull let out an earth-shattering roar as its hind hooves stomped on the void and charged towards the murderous demon. Boom! The murderous demon's expression turned ugly as he punched out with his right fist, smashing it heavily on the huge bull's head. Terrifying energy ripples spread out like endless waves and quickly spread out, causing the surrounding space to explode. The giant bull was blasted back repeatedly, and the Godslayer devil's figure also stagnated, his face turning extremely ugly. The bull constellation god and the horn constellation god intercepted him from the left and right. Murderous demon! The bull constellation god's eyes were filled with killing intent as he punched at the murderous demon's face. The horn constellation god was silent, but the killing intent in his eyes was extremely terrifying. He waved his right hand, and the surrounding thousands of miles was completely covered in starlight vortices. And from every starlight vortex, Astral weapons with terrifying might surged out and began to madly attack the demonic killing god. Bang! The murderous demon's eyes were gloomy as he punched out as well. Terrifying blood-red demonic energy erupted like a tide and collided heavily with the bull constellation god. The murderous demon and the bull constellation god separated upon contact and retreated a certain distance. After the bull constellation god stabilized himself, he launched a frenzied attack on the murderous demon. After the murderous demon stabilized himself, he passively defended against the astral weapons that came from all directions. These astral weapons were very powerful. When they hit him, his blood boiled and many wounds appeared on his body as blood spurted out. Fortunately, his recovery ability was extremely terrifying. The wounds caused by the astral weapons quickly healed. However, there were too many astral weapons. They came from all directions and bombarded his body, increasing his injuries. Demonic blood splattered all over the sky. Die! The bull constellation god swept over and punched the murderous demon's chest with his starlight fist. Poochie! The murderous demon spat out a mouthful of blood and fell heavily to the ground. At the same time, the horn constellation god's right palm landed, and countless astral weapons bombarded the place where the murderous demon fell, completely suppressing him. Then, the bull constellation god kept attacking the murderous demon. The murderous demon was almost unable to fight back. His injuries were getting more and more serious, and his consciousness was fading. Slash! When the bull constellation god punched the murderous demon again, a light shout was heard. The horn constellation god raised his right palm high and clenched his 5 fingers. The countless astral weapons in the sky suddenly gathered together and turned into a dazzling divine sword that pierced through heaven and earth. The power of this divine sword was too terrifying. It was as if countless stars and suns were hidden in it. As the horn constellation god's voice fell, the divine sword that seemed to pierce through heaven and earth slashed down from the sky, heading straight for the murderous demon. No! The murderous demon let out an unwilling roar as he watched the divine sword land in front of him. Then, it slashed through his forehead and split him in two. The murderous demon's corpse fell from the sky. However, before it fell to the ground, the horn constellation god waved his sleeve and put away the corpse. Go and help the female constellation god. The horn constellation god glanced at the bull constellation god and waved his right hand. The terrifying divine sword flew across the sky and headed for the murderous demon on the other side. The bull constellation god naturally had no objections. He jumped up and landed on the hilt of the divine sword. His cold eyes were like sharp arrows that pierced toward the murderous demon. Chapter 48:22. At this moment, Mo Ju-shen had lost all will to fight after discovering that the horned constellation god had attacked. He only wanted to run away. However, the horned constellation god was too difficult to deal with. Moreover, her ability was strange. She kept releasing countless strands of starlight, weaving an omnipresent net around her. Mo Ju-shen tried to escape many times, but he was trapped by the invisible net in the space around him. It was difficult for him to escape. The divine sword flew through the air at an extremely fast speed and arrived in front of Mo Ju-shen in an instant. Mo Ju-shen's eyelids twitched. He screamed, and a terrifying dark green demonic energy erupted from his body. His body underwent an extremely obvious change. One could only see strange green hands gushing out of his body. Each of the green hands was filled with a terrifying and eerie aura. It was very frightening. Boom, 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 boom. The countless green hands were like mountains. They blocked Mo Ju-shen's path and attacked the divine sword. Bang, bang, bang. The divine sword was simply too terrifying. One by one, the giant green hands exploded one after another. Like a long rainbow, it flew straight and instantly pierced through Mo Ju-shen's body. No. How is this possible? Mo Ju-shen spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at the void in front of him and sighed. As expected of the 4 paragons. You are indeed much stronger than the ordinary constellation gods. Unfortunately what? The horned constellation god stood on the sword hilt. She did not let down her guard even after seeing Emojushin being pierced by the divine sword. Unfortunately, you are facing the heavenly demon king. Among the true demons, Emojushin and I are ranked at the bottom. What's the point of killing us? The other true demons will avenge us, and so will the heavenly demon king. As Emojushin spoke, his eyes became crazed. His ugly body began to swell, and a terrifying aura erupted. Retreat! He's going to self-destruct. The horned constellation god's expression changed slightly. With a wave of his sleeve, the divine sword that pierced Emojushin collapsed and turned into astral weapons. Countless astral soldiers gathered together and circled around Emojushin, forming a thick and powerful sphere. The constellation deity and constellation deity didn't even hesitate as they quickly retreated into the Star City's divine formation. The constellation god of the Horn constellation retreated to the left side of the Star City. He did his best to unleash his divine power, forming a thick divine power barrier. Boom, boom. Not long after, Emojushin completely self-detonated. The terrifying explosive energy poured out like a terrifying wave. The sphere formed by countless astral soldiers resisted for a long time before it finally couldn't hold on and exploded. One after another, the astral weapons dimmed and flew backward, stabbing into the ground. Subsequently, the terrifying explosive energy swept out in all directions like a tidal wave, instantly engulfing everything. The 3 star cities shook violently. They were on the verge of collapse, as if they couldn't hold on any longer. After a long time, the energy of the explosion finally subsided, and the 3 star cities regained their calm. Countless immemorial gods hiding in the star cities breathed a sigh of relief. They thought they would die in the explosion. In the end, Emojushin, and the million-strong heavenly demon army were annihilated. Destroy all the heavenly demon army's corpses. The constellation god of the Horn constellation ordered all the immemorial gods in the Star City to destroy the corpses of the immemorial heavenly demons. He knew very well that these immemorial heavenly demons could be revived by the heavenly demon king. He didn't want to waste his efforts to kill the heavenly demons. Many immemorial gods also understood this. They rushed out of the Star City and began to attack the corpses of the immemorial heavenly demons. Just as many immemorial gods attacked, the void in the distance tore open, and 3 figures slowly stepped out. The one in the lead was a man wearing a devil mask. Beside him were 2 tall and burly oxhead and dragonhead heavenly demons. These 2 heavenly demons were true demons, and their auras were even more terrifying than Emojushin and Emojushin. The devil-masked man waved his sleeve, and the surrounding void tore open. Countless black demonic swords shot out and rained down on the immemorial gods on the battlefield. The primordial gods let out miserable shrieks as their bodies were impaled by the devil weapons and nailed to the ground. They were deader than dead. This scene was too sudden. By the time the Horn constellation gods, Ox constellation gods, and female constellation gods reacted, the 100,000 or so primordial gods that had charged out were already dead. They hurriedly ordered the other primordial gods to hide inside the Star City and looked at the grimace man floating in the air with fear in their eyes. Heavenly Demon King. Horn constellation god's pupils constricted as he muttered to himself in fear. The Heavenly Devil King looked down at the countless heavenly devil corpses on the ground. His eyes were as calm as water. Then, he raised his head and looked at the Horn constellation god on the city wall. Horned constellation god. As one of the 4 leaders of the primordial gods, isn't it against the rules to casually attack a heavenly demon? Heavenly Demon King said indifferently. The constellation god of the Horn constellation said coldly, against the rules? Heavenly Demon King, do you think you are an omnipotent god? Everything has to be done according to your rules? How laughable! I'm not a god, I'm a demon. Please don't insult me. Heavenly Demon King said indifferently. The constellation god of the Horn constellation god was furious. This Heavenly Demon King actually dared to mock the primordial gods. How hateful! The 2 of you, collect all the corpses. Pick out those with aptitude for me. Heavenly Demon King looked at the two true demons beside him and said indifferently. The two true demons quickly responded and rushed into the battlefield to collect the heavenly devil corpses. Of course, while they were collecting the corpses, they would also observe them from time to time to see if the heavenly devil corpses had the aptitude that Heavenly Demon King had mentioned. You primordial gods are quite pitiful. I won't take advantage of you. You killed 1,000,000 of my heavenly devil army, so I only killed a few 100,000 primordial gods just now. I won't slaughter your primordial god army anymore. Heaven Devil King stretched out his pale palm and raised his index finger. He pointed at the two constellation gods on the city walls of Star City. However, you killed 2 of my true demon generals. This can't be justified. For the sake of fairness, hand over the 2 constellation gods. Heavenly Demon King's voice was very soft and indifferent, but it caused the expressions of the 2 constellation gods to change drastically. The constellation god of the Horn constellation god's eyes darkened, and he said in a low voice, "Heavenly Demon King, don't go too far." Heavenly Demon King said indifferently, "This is not going too far. Everything is for the sake of fairness. If you don't hand them over, then I'll have to do it myself." With that, Heavenly Demon King took a step forward. This step was very light, but strange ripples suddenly appeared in the space, and Heavenly Demon King disappeared. When Heavenly Demon King appeared again, he was on the city wall in the middle of the Star City. He actually ignored the Star City's divine formation and entered the city. Chapter 48-23. Heavenly Demon King, you. The Horn constellation god's expression changed drastically. His body was covered in dazzling starlight as he clenched his right hand. Countless astral weapons that were flickering with blazing starlight swept over from all directions. Clang, clang, clang. In an instant, countless astral weapons rained down on the Heavenly Demon King. However, when they were a few feet away from the Heavenly Demon King, an invisible barrier blocked them. The astral weapons collided with the invisible barrier, setting off blazing and dazzling sparks that scattered out, dazzling everyone's eyes. The Heavenly Demon King stepped out as if nothing had happened and walked toward the Neo constellation god and the female constellation god. Below Star City, Ma Yujie was among the many primordial gods. He looked at the Heavenly Demon King, who was leisurely strolling in the void above Star City, and was completely shocked. The Heavenly Demon King's strength was completely out of his expectations. The Horn constellation god, who was so powerful, actually couldn't do anything to the Heavenly Demon King. The Horn constellation god's expression was ugly. He let out a low roar and clenched his right hand. Countless astral weapons turned into terrifying divine swords that cut across the sky and slashed down heavily. The Heavenly Demon King raised his eyes slightly and stretched out his pale hand. He clenched his fist in the air, and a terrifying power exploded. That powerful divine sword that could even make heaven and earth tremble suddenly stopped. Horn constellation god. Your strength has improved, but unfortunately, you still can't transcend the category of constellation god because you have walked into the wrong path. The Heavenly Demon King shook his head and flicked his finger. An invisible ripple spread out. Then, the terrifying divine sword that seemed to be able to penetrate the heavens and the earth exploded with a bang. It turned into countless astral soldiers that flew in all directions. The Horn constellation god's pupils shrank. He let out a muffled groan and retreated continuously. He even crashed into several buildings in Star City before he could stabilize himself in a sorry state. The Heavenly Demon King didn't even look at the Horn constellation god. He lifted his feet and continued walking toward the Neo constellation god and the female constellation god. At this moment, the Neo constellation god and the female constellation god were still floating in the void, motionless. However, their eyes were filled with fear and dread. They wanted to escape, but they knew that they couldn't escape now. Once they escaped, they would never be able to raise their heads among the primordial gods. This was the last barrier of the primordial gods. If they still fled here, they wouldn't be constellation gods. The constellation god panted heavily. With a roar, he gathered all the divine power in his body and took a step forward, charging toward the heavenly Devil King. Behind constellation god Bull, 10 giant bull phantoms appeared. Each of the giant bull phantoms was made up of specks of starlight. They were mysterious and distant, and they looked very powerful and terrifying. The constellation god's beautiful eyes were cold. She moved like lightning and swept toward the celestial demon king at an extremely fast speed. She pushed out her jade-like hand, and endless ice crystals turned into terrifying snowstorms that blasted toward the celestial demon king. "You guys are too weak." The heavenly devil king did not stop. He gently bent his pale fingers, and a terrifying demonic power spread out from the void. In the blink of an eye, the area within a radius of a few 100 million miles seemed to be confined by some kind of terrifying power, and it instantly froze. The silhouettes of the 10 giant bulls and the endless snowstorm froze in an instant, then collapsed inch by inch. How is this possible? The two constellation gods, Nyo and Nyo, were stunned when they saw this scene. They looked at this scene in disbelief. Their full-powered attacks were actually blocked by the heavenly Devil King just like that. Moreover, they didn't even know how the heavenly Devil King did it. How can the gap be so big? The two constellation gods, Nyo and Nyo, felt a strong sense of fear. At this moment, the fighting spirit in their hearts completely collapsed, and they were on the verge of a mental breakdown. The strength of the heavenly Devil King almost made the two of them despair. The heavenly Devil King still did not stop. He bent his fingers and gently flicked them out. Terrifying energy suddenly exploded, and the surrounding void kept collapsing. The two constellation gods, Nyo and Nyo, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Their divine bodies, which were flowing with resplendent starlight, exploded into clouds of blood mist. "Barry!" The heavenly Devil King softly spat out a word. The void around the two constellation gods collapsed and distorted with a loud bang. It was like a huge mouth that directly swallowed the two of them. Immediately after, the two constellation gods' shrill screams came from the depths of the void. But soon, the screams came to an abrupt end. The void that was like a huge mouth collapsed and returned to normal. "It's fair now." The heavenly Devil King looked deeply at the collapsed building in front of Star City and continued, "Next, I hope that you primordial gods can also abide by the rules. After all, if you break the rules, then I have to break the rules too. I hope that you can all work hard. This way, I won't be too bored. After all, I don't want such an interesting game to end so quickly, right?" After saying that, the heavenly Devil King instantly disappeared from Star City and appeared in the void thousands of miles away from Star City. At this moment, the two true demons, Nyo 2 and Long 2, had already collected all the corpses of the heavenly demons on the battlefield. They also screened out the heavenly demons that they thought had potential. "My king!" The two true demons knelt in front of the heavenly Devil King. The Long 2 true demons said in a deep voice, "According to your request, we have collected all the heavenly demon corpses. Are there any with good aptitude?" The heavenly Devil King asked indifferently. The two true demons looked at each other. The Nyo 2 true demon said in a deep voice, "My king! We found a high-grade heavenly demon corpse of a commander rank. We unanimously agreed that this heavenly demon corpse's aptitude is extremely high. It's even better than ours." The heavenly Devil King raised an eyebrow and continued, "Then bring his corpse for me to see." The Nyo 2 true demon nodded and waved his sleeve. A headless corpse appeared in front of the heavenly Devil King. The head of this heavenly demon corpse floated quietly not far away from the corpse. Its eyes were wide open, and it died with remaining grievances. This corpse was Emo Shuji. The heavenly Devil King looked at the corpse and nodded to himself. "Not bad. This corpse's aptitude is indeed very good. If he doesn't die, he can become a true demon with his own strength." The two true demons were shocked when they heard this. They didn't expect the heavenly Devil King to have such a high opinion of Emo Shuji. "Let's go. I will train this corpse well. After he revives, he will probably become one of my favorite generals." The heavenly Devil King said indifferently. He waved his sleeve and a huge crack appeared in the void behind him. He left with the two true demons and Emo Shuji's corpse. Boom. Not long after the heavenly devil king left, a figure suddenly soared into the sky from a ruin in the Middle Star City. A terrifying divine power surged out from him. Heavenly Devil King, you have gone too far. Today I, the Horned Constellation, will make you pay even if I have to risk my life. The Horned Constellation god soared into the sky. Although he was in a sorry state, his injuries didn't seem serious. At this moment, his eyes were filled with anger and coldness. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.